Chapter 8:17. A communication talisman appeared in Gu Qingshan's hand. He carefully explained everything into the talisman, then infused it with spirit energy to send the talisman to the sky. This is an urgent matter, I have to let Shifu know right away. The talisman turned into a streak of flame and flew away. Not too long later, a black dot appeared in the sky. In the blink of an eye, the black dot disappeared. Xie Guhong was already standing in front of Gu Qingshan. There were 7 swords hovering behind his back. He was wearing a set of armor that was stained with blood. From the looks of it, he seemed to have rushed here from the battlefield. Xie Guhong observed Gu Qingshan with an emotional gaze. Shifu, everything I said in the talisman was true, Gu Qingshan said. I know, Xie Guhong replied. Seeing how calm he was, Gu Qingshan suddenly asked, So you already knew? Xie Guhong nodded, turned around and walked towards the cliff in front of the mountain. Looking at the vast mountain range, he sighed. For the sake of our own survival, for the sake of serving the divinities, humanity has been fighting on the front lines against the desolate monsters. This situation has been going on for so many years, but the war has never stopped, which made us suspicious. Who would have thought? The information that we paid such a heavy price to obtain was so easily obtained by you, not to mention that your information was even clearer and more complete than what we knew. Xie Guhong turned around and looked at Gu Qingshan with a look of admiration and emotion. Qingshan, this place can no longer exist. You have to remember what I'm about to say, Shifu? Gu Qingshan didn't quite understand. Xie Guhong continued. We could faintly sense the truth of the matter, but we couldn't confirm whether or not it was the truth, so before the Age of Old was destroyed, we made preparations for both scenarios. Hearing this, Gu Qingshan's eyebrows twitched. Xie Guhong said before the Age of Old was destroyed. If that's the case, could it be that he had already escaped from this phantom image and saw the true end of history? When Gu Qingshan was about to say something, Xie Guhong waved his hand to stop her. There's not much time left. We have to hurry. At this time, far away from the mountains, the sky suddenly opened, and a vast voice spread throughout the entire world. The human cultivator Zhang Xiaoyun has betrayed the divinities and defected to the desolate world. He is an unpardonable villain. All great cultivators are to immediately find and kill this person. Anyone who hears this, come here immediately. I will personally supervise this matter. Xie Guhong looked away and shook his head. He continued, Listen, Qingshan, the current situation is dire. Not only are the divinities searching for you, even an entity from another spacetime has infiltrated the barren cloud heavenly palace, so you can't go anywhere. When Gu Qingshan was about to say something, Xie Guhong stopped him again. In the distance, the voice of the god sounded again. All high-grade cultivators, come quickly. One after another, streams of light flew toward the location of the gods. Xie Guhong ignored the summoning of the divinity, and instead waved his hand to arrange a soundproof formation. His voice was becoming faster and faster. During the final years of the Age of Old, humanity's only immortal king had prepared a certain method in advance. With the help of all of us cultivators, we managed to successfully trigger the space-time phantom image illusion right before the primordial heaven realm was destroyed. As time passed, this phantom image illusion would split into countless numbers, specifically used to confuse the divinities and desolate monsters. The divinities and monsters might be able to notice these phantom images, but the endless phantom images made it impossible for them to understand what we were doing at the very last moment before our deaths. Qingshan, you must follow a certain secret sequence within these countless phantom images to reach the final location. Xie Guhong paused for a bit as his expression became extremely solemn. We have hidden the final moment of the Age of Old within the countless phantom images. You must find it. Once you find it, you will have truly returned to the moment when humanity was destroyed in the Age of Old. Gu Qingshan finally couldn't help but ask, What am I going to do at that moment? Xie Guhong silently looked at him for a long while before answering, The Heaven Sword was only forged at the very last moment of humanity's destruction. You must take it with you, Shifu. You carry the real Earth Sword on you, I can sense it. Xie Guhong took out a jade disc from his chest pocket and put it in Gu Qingshan's hand. Gu Qingshan looked down. The jade disc felt warm in his hand, as if it contained an immeasurable amount of power. A number was carved on the surface of the jade disc. Gone 9, Xie Guhong explained. Among the countless phantom images, only this jade disc will be able to bring you to the next unique phantom image. You must survive that phantom image and obtain the next jade disc, all the way until the very last moment of the Age of Old to take the Heaven Sword. Gu Qingshan held the jade disc in his hand, unable to say anything. Despite being surrounded by the divinities and monsters, at the very last moment of destruction, humanity was still able to come up with such a method to pass on their hope. He clenched his teeth and held the jade disc tightly. Shifu, then are you a phantom image or, I am a fragment of my soul that I left behind before my death, waiting for this moment for countless years. Xie Guhong's figure slowly faded away. I will bring this phantom image with me to destruction, erasing all traces of you, not letting any entity discover you. He smiled at the end. Being able to take in a disciple like you is truly a great comfort. I hope that you will be able to accomplish what my generation couldn't. Bam! Xie Guhong's figure scattered into countless fragments, then turned back into a cloud of mist. The entire world turned into an illusory image that slowly faded away. The jade disc in Gu Qingshan's hand suddenly lit up. It was giving off a blinking light as if calling out to something. The disciple jade disc that Gu Qingshan obtained from the spirit tortoise suddenly jumped out from her chest pocket and combined with the jade disc that Xie Guhong gave her. The two jade discs combined into one, giving off a 7-colored light that enveloped Gu Qingshan. The jade disc chose a direction and brought Gu Qingshan through the endless mist, quickly disappearing without a trace. Let's rewind time a bit. At another location, Barren Cloud Master Peak, a cultivator silently appeared from below the ground. He silently went through all the defensive formations and directly entered the Master Peak. No one noticed this. He looked around and saw the mountain valley. According to the information I received just now, Gu Qingshan should still be cultivating in the Sword Abyss. He muttered in a low voice. Noticing that something wasn't right, the cultivator closed his eyes and carefully sensed his surroundings. Everything was normal. He was a bit doubtful, but quickly calmed down and quickly walked towards the mountain valley. While walking, he was constantly changing his appearance. When he stood in front of the mountain valley, he had returned to his original appearance. A flame of light was burning between his eyebrows, his entire body was shrouded in glorious light. After traveling for a long time, he had finally arrived here. This divinity reached his hand out and lightly touched the void of space. Bam! The defensive formations around the mountain valley were instantly destroyed. No one would be able to stop him from flying down and killing Gu Qingshan. At this point, a figure flew up from below the mountain valley and looked at him in shock. Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan had appeared. Who are you? How did you get in here? Gu Qingshan asked. The divinity looked at him and couldn't help but smirk. Gu Qingshan, everything about you is coming to an end. The future will no longer change because of you, the divinity solemnly declared. He raised his hand. Just as he was about to act, the entire world began to spin. Gu Qingshan's figure turned into a mass of white fog. Following that, the entire world turned into fog and disappeared from the divinity's sight. The phantom world of the Age of Old had disappeared. The divinity didn't panic and simply stood in the middle of the boundless void, silently contemplating. Why would the world disappear at a time like this? Where exactly did Gu Qingshan go? While he was thinking, a figure of light manifested from the void of space. Who are you? The divinity shouted. Sensing my presence, do you still not know who I am? The figure of light replied. You are the consciousness of our race, the divinity replied. Indeed, I've waited here for far too many years for this day to finally arrive, the figure of light replied. What are you waiting for? The divinity asked. Waiting for a member of our race to arrive. At the very last moment of the age of old, humanity left behind countless phantom images. We don't know what they did, but they released a kind of omen right before their deaths that caused us to be in a state of unease. The divinity stayed silent for a bit, then replied. I know what they left behind then, that's good. The figure of light tossed a coin to him. Go, this desolate coin is the real deal, it will help you sense your target's location. The only problem is that there's a chance for the location to deviate. The divinity received the desolate coin and carefully observed it. It's indeed the real deal, he muttered. Putting the coin away, the divinity smiled again. It doesn't matter if there's a deviation, as long as we can find him. He won't be able to escape death. Chapter 8:18. Darkness. In the silent darkness, Gu Qing Shan opened his eyes. He saw a man crouching down in front of him. It was an old face. Time has left too many marks on this face, making it hard for anyone to not wonder just how much hardship the owner of this face had to go through. The old man put his index finger on his lips, gesturing for him to keep quiet. Gu Qing Shan cooperated and remained silent, not making any movements or saying anything. The spirit tortoise and Xie Gu Hong's jade disc brought him here, so he had the most basic level of trust in the environment in front of him. He looked at the other party and sent his voice through inner sight. May I ask who you are? Let's go out first before we talk. The old man also sent his voice. Gu Qing Shan looked around and found that he was lying in the middle of a military camp. Everyone in the camp had fallen into a deep sleep. Only the old man in front of him was staring at him with bright, piercing eyes. This old man seemed to have been waiting for him to come. Gu Qing Shan followed the old man out of the camp one after the other. Under the dim light of night, the two of them were quickly flying through a forest. Where are we going? Gu Qing Shan asked through inner sight. We're leaving this camp, we need to hurry, the old man replied. All right, you go ahead, I'll follow you, Gu Qing Shan said. As soon as he said so, the old man flew in front of him and led the way. Gu Qing Shan's frown loosened a bit. He could sense an irresistible spirit pressure from the old man, almost the same as Xie Gu Hong. In other words, this was a great cultivator from the age of old. The two of them continued flying. About half an incense's worth of time later, the two of them finally made it through countless forests, mountains, and finally arrived at the seaside. The ocean was vast, the waves were undulating. The moon rose above the sea, leaving a layer of white frost on the surface of the sea, which was then shattered by the ripples of the water. The old man tapped his inventory bag and took out an airship. Take it, he finally spoke up. What are you? Gu Qing Shan was confused. This flying boat can fly in the sky, float on the sea, and even travel through the bottom of the sea. It is equipped with 36 different concealment formations. As long as the spirit stones don't run out, it will be enough to guarantee that you won't be discovered for a short period of time, the old man said. On the flying ship, there are countless great cultivators' insights and cultivation method. You can learn from them. Gu Qing Shan asked, but why should I hide in the sea? The old man replied, because this is a phantom image that we meticulously designed. It recorded the darkest and most despairing period of the war between humanity and the desolate monsters. In the next few months, the entire human race will be in a state of gradual destruction. The divinities are currently keeping an eye on the human race, so they won't easily go to the sea. So, as long as you stay away from land and try to be as careful as possible, there won't be too much of a problem. The old man took out another jade disc and gave it to Gu Qing Shan. Gu Qing Shan took it and looked at it. There were two words engraved on the jade plate, Kuan Lu. The jade plate seemed to have sensed something and abruptly flew into Gu Qing Shan's chest. Gu Qing Shan hurriedly grabbed it. This jade plate had already fused with the other two jade plates in his chest, giving off a faint glow. He now had the disciple, Qianjiu, and Kuan Lu jade plates. Gu Qingshan couldn't believe that he was able to obtain this jade plate so easily. Seeing his expression, the old man quickly understood what he was thinking. The old man explained, "In the age of old, we used divination to predict a single thing. That is, if someone managed to pass through the spirit tortoise and Xie Guhong's trial, they would definitely run into a dangerous assassination attempt. For this reason, we designed this phantom image of the age of old. During this period of time, the entire human race of the world is in a state of destruction. While you are hidden in the sea by us, no one would be able to find out about your existence. The only thing you need to do is to desperately increase your cultivation, only then will you be able to survive the next phantom image. You need to at least reach Radiant Soul Realm for your jade plate to activate and take you to the next phantom image, Cryptic, Chaotic Star, Origin Return, Radiant Soul." Gu Qingshan muttered, then couldn't help but ask, "What if I haven't reached Radiant Soul Realm?" The old man shook his head. "If you haven't reached Radiant Soul Realm, you won't be able to survive the next phantom image. The only thing you can do is stay in this world, either break through or be discovered and killed by the divinities or desolate monsters." Gu Qingshan sighed. "I will do my best to increase my cultivation." The old man nodded and quickly formed a series of complicated hand seals with both hands. "It's fortunate that you haven't talked to anyone. This way I would be able to perfectly conceal your traces in this world," he said. "There's such a technique? Not even the divinities or desolate monsters can find me?" Gu Qingshan asked. The old man continued to form the hand seals and replied, "Indeed, this technique is called Soul Retreat. We've already used various methods to verify it to ensure that we won't be exposed. Only a cultivator with the heaven and earth evasion, thaumaturgy like myself would be able to use Soul Retreat to its fullest extent by burning my life force and soul." Gu Qingshan asked, "With such a thaumaturgy, you should be able to avoid all the divinities and monsters. Why do you have to do this?" The old man casually replied, "All my family members have been eaten by the monsters, my sect, my friends, everything I have has been destroyed by them. Where else can I go?" The old man's hand seals suddenly stopped. He looked up at Gu Qingshan and spoke deeply. "The Heaven Sword is my only hope, brat. You definitely can't fail. I'll leave the future to you." He infused his entire body's spirit energy into the hand seal and completed it. Poof! The old man's entire body exploded into a mist of blood that was blown away by the howling sea breeze. A layer of light wrapped around Gu Qingshan's body, then made a turn against the wind and headed back the way they came. Within Gu Qingshan's inner sight, the light followed the path they came from and headed towards the military camp. Legend has it that after a person dies, they would follow the path they came from and collect all of their footprints, leaving no traces behind. This was Soul Retreat. The old man had been staying in this phantom image for over 10,000 years, just to cover up the tracks of a person who came after him. He was only waiting for this moment where he would die. Gu Qingshan went silent for a while, then clasped her fist towards the void of space. "Don't worry, senior, I will definitely not fail." He rode the airship and flew towards the ocean. Time slowly passed. 20 breaths later. The military camp. A figure suddenly appeared. A divinity with a golden glow between his eyebrows. He opened his hand and stared at the desolate coin in his hand. The desolate coin didn't move at all. The divinity appeared surprised. As he pondered, he suddenly flew into one of the barracks and gently tapped the forehead of a sleeping cultivator. The cultivator instantly died. Countless images quickly flashed through the divinity's eyes. A few moments later, the divinity finished looking through this cultivator's memories. "Nothing," he murmured softly. He flew into another barracks and lightly touched the foreheads of several sleeping cultivators. Pieces of memories flowed into his mind. Strange, the divinity was a bit annoyed. He leapt into the sky and looked around. The night was as dark as ink. At the faraway horizon, several gigantic figures that seemed to connect heaven and earth were slowly making their way here. The divinity abruptly looked down. The cultivators in the camp were still sleeping. Why aren't they reacting to such a huge commotion? The divinity finally realized. It turns out these people's souls had already been taken away and turned into prepared food. He looked to the other side again. Under the dark sky, he couldn't hear any human voices at all. This was already the end of the world. The primordial heaven realm's humanity had already gone extinct. How did I suddenly move forward so much and arrive at this moment? The divinity looked at the coin in his hand. The coin still didn't react. The divinity suddenly recalled the figure of light's words. This desolate coin is the real deal. It will help you sense your target's location. The only problem is that there's a chance of deviation. Did something really go wrong? The divinity remained silent for a while longer. Brilliant rays of light began to radiate from his body, quickly flying and searching in every direction. A few moments later, all the light returned to his body. There were no living humans. In other words, humanity had already gone extinct. Gu Qingshan wasn't here either. After confirming this, the divinity muttered, "Seems like there really was a deviation. No, I need to hurry and catch up to him. Otherwise, with the help of those age-of-old humans, he'll only grow stronger and stronger, at which point things will become troublesome." He abruptly struck the void of space. The void of space split open. A black hole appeared in front of him. Chapter 8:19. On the ocean. Gu Qingshan put his hand on the deck of the airship and closed his eyes in thought. The cultivators of the age of old were truly brilliant. Not only did they create a stealthy airship that could fly up to the ninth heaven, but they also engraved a lot of knowledge and experience of the cultivation civilization into the ship. In other words, the entire airship was a jade tag that contained humanity's highest cultivation knowledge. Facing such a treasure, Gu Qingshan wasn't greedy, nor did he blindly try to comprehend all of its contents. At a time like this, having more doesn't necessarily mean it's better, only with less would he be able to quickly move forward. After all, this world was in the midst of an era of destruction, so he needed to speed up and leave this place as soon as possible to go to the next world. Gu Qingshan picked and chose only the ones that could increase his cultivation speed and increase his spirit energy. When he felt that he was ready, he took out a spirit energy pill, swallowed it, sat down cross-legged, and entered a meditative state. With the support of war god skills, over 1,000,000 soul points, Xie Guamhong's swordsmanship inheritance, as well as the understanding of the cultivators of the age of old, Gu Qingshan's breakthrough to the next realm came naturally. A few moments later, he opened his eyes. He was now a cryptic realm late-stage cultivator. His spirit energy waves became sluggish, a bit chaotic and sluggish. Not too long ago, he broke through to cryptic realm middle stage, and now he's breaking through to cryptic realm late stage. The consecutive breakthroughs caused his spirit energy to become unstable. Fortunately, this wasn't a very serious situation, otherwise, it would be very difficult for Gu Qingshan to break through again in a short period of time. Gu Qingshan silently recalled a certain ancient technique that could calm spirit energy fluctuations, clasped his hands together, and formed a hand seal. This was the 9 revolutions spirit release technique. In the age of old, the great cultivators of the age of old came up with a brilliant idea to deal with spirit energy fluctuations. That was to vent out the agitated spiritual energy. After all the spirit energy is released, the dantian would be completely empty. When the dantian produced spiritual power again, taking advantage of the weak spiritual power of the new life to stabilize it, you can easily calm the spiritual power fluctuations. Gu Qingshan continued to circulate her spirit release art, slowly straightening out her newly born spirit chi according to the ancient method. Then, she guided the spirit chi through her limbs, bones, meridians, and finally returned to her dantian. The spiritual power calmed down. Since their spirit energy had calmed down, the cultivator could now follow the cultivation method to guide their spirit energy to grow and attempt to break through to the next stage. However, the ancient cultivators were not like Gu Qing who could directly comprehend all kinds of profound cultivation method. The speed of their breakthroughs was determined by their own cultivation aptitude and their ability to comprehend cultivation technique. Gu Qing opened her eyes and sighed. He sincerely admired the wisdom of the ancient cultivators. He stood up from the flying ship and carefully sensed the changes in the spiritual energy in his body. The total amount of spiritual power had increased by about 5%. When he breaks through cryptic realm and advances to chaotic star realm, his spirit energy will also increase greatly. The amount of spirit energy a cultivator has directly affected the power of their attacks and how long they can last in battle. For sword techniques and spells, the more spirit energy they use, the more powerful they will be. With Gu Qingshan's current spirit energy as the benchmark, any secret art she uses would be several times more powerful than when he was still at Sainted Realm. Now, it's time to try to comprehend the method to quickly break through to the next realm. With that in mind, Gu Qingshan looked at the War God UI. The total amount of soul points displayed on the War God UI had reached over 1 million. War God skills has been prepared and can be upgraded at any time. But why do I have to learn the techniques of the divinities? Xie Guhong was able to win against the divinities by half a strike with his swordsmanship alone. Why do I have to give up what's close at hand and seek what's far away? He thought for a bit and asked, "System, I have a question, Ting." The War God UI responded, "You may ask, from now on each question will cost 10 soul points." Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised. "Why are you charging soul points? You've never charged them before?" "Thank you for the 20 soul points you've given me. I will now answer your question as follows. Because you have over 1 million soul points, the system also wants to bask in some of your glory." The bygone era had a vivid description of this. A man keeps his wealth, a goose plucks its feathers. The War God UI slowly replied. Gu Qingshan looked at his soul points and saw that the huge number had indeed changed a bit. 20 soul points were deducted. This system, fine, it's only 20 soul points. Not to mention, this 1 million soul points is already far above the limit. According to the system, this was all thanks to it, otherwise, Gu Qingshan would only be able to store a few hundred soul points. There's no need to bicker with it over 20 soul points. Gu Qingshan sighed speechlessly. He continued to ask, "I want to know why the War God UI needs to be upgraded to learn the skills of the divinities? Also, does this mean that the skills of the divinities are superior to those of humanity?" "Thank you for the 20 soul points. Your first question is very simple. Because you and I have returned to the era before the apocalypse, when we were traveling through space-time, in order to not be noticed by any entities, as well as to successfully return to the past, the system couldn't help but remove and shut down the majority of its functions. Even War God skills had regressed to its lowest possible state. Regarding this, you can see the relevant options below the War God UI to understand." Gu Qingshan looked at the War God UI as told. At the bottom of the UI, a row of icons silently glowed coldly. Looking at them in order, they were War God Skills, War God Thaumaturgy, War God Title, Doomsday Chronicles, and War God Quest. Aside from these 5 icons, the other icons were obscured like black holes, occasionally giving off a black mist so they couldn't be seen at all. There are still a lot of functions that haven't been unlocked yet. Gu Qingshan muttered. "Yes, I've regressed very severely," the War God UI continued. "I will now answer your second question. The divinity skills aren't superior to humanity's. Then why can I only learn the divinity skills after the War God UI levels up?" Gu Qingshan asked. "Thank you for the 10 soul points. This is because the divinity's skills aren't the divinity's skills. They are imitating and learning from humanity from countless years ago. That's how they manage to grasp a few simple ways to use their powers. This answer surprised Gu Qingshan a bit. He muses and asked, then, learning the divinity's skills is actually learning the original skills of humanity? That's correct, thank you for the 10 soul points. The system replied. Gu Qingshan's thoughts quickly turned and suddenly asked, then what about the desolate monsters? Were their skills innate or did they learn them from humanity? The war god Yui replied, it's rare for you to think of such a question. This is a very important matter, so you will be charged 25 soul points. The system will answer as follows. The desolate monsters were created once. Their bodies, their abilities, everything about them were created by humanity from the bygone era. Furthermore, the system will give you an additional piece of information. After you rank up War God skills, the next time you rank up War God skills, you will be able to comprehend the power of humanity from a very long time ago from the bodies of desolate monsters. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask, the next time I level it up? How do I level it up? Thank you for the 20 soul points. First of all, you can indeed level it up again. Secondly, as for the soul points required to level up War God skills, the next time you level it up, it will be around 3 million soul points. Gu Qingshan angrily shouted. 3 million? Where do you think I'm going to steal 3 million for you? The war god Yui calmly explained. Humanity didn't spend too much effort on the desolate monsters, so the desolate monsters' inherited power is actually quite minuscule. But since their power came from a genuine human inheritance, unlike the divinities who only learned it through imitation, their power is a bit stronger than divinities. The system emphasized. That's why it's a bit more expensive. Gu Qingshan couldn't say anything. He looked towards the ocean and pondered the information he received from the war god Yui. He really couldn't imagine just how powerful humanity was countless years ago. According to the desolate ruler's conversation with the divinities, humanity once entered a door in the bygone era. What's behind that door? It's been a few 100 million years, why haven't they returned? Gu Qingshan looked at the waves of the ocean, as well as the dark sky in the distance. And now all of humanity is dead. This world is showing the end of the primordial heaven realm. Perhaps the spirit tortoise was the only survivor of the entire primordial heaven realm. At this point, a thought suddenly appeared in Gu Qingshan's mind. His heart skipped a beat. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Chapter 820. How many worlds were there in the age of old? Thinking about this, Gu Qingshan became serious. System, in this era, other than the primordial heaven realm, how many worlds are there? Gu Qingshan asked. The war god Yui replied. This matter is unrelated to the system cannot answer. Gu Qingshan said. This is a very important question, I'll give you a bit more soul points. Answer me, the war god Yui replied. You must find out about this yourself, I don't know about matters unrelated to me. Gu Qingshan had no choice but to give up. He paced back and forth on the airship, thinking of a way to investigate the other world. At this time, the primordial heaven realm was in a state of extinction. All living beings on land were dead. The ocean was also completely empty. Gu Qingshan was floating alone on the ocean. How would he investigate these things? After thinking for a while, he crouched down and placed his hand on the airship. Other than cultivation scriptures, the cultivators of the age of old should have left quite a bit of history and civilization records. Gu Qingshan's inner sight entered the airship, carefully searching through the vast scriptures. A few dozen seconds later, his eyes suddenly lit up and muttered. Found it, according to humanity's records, there were a total of 2 worlds in this era. The primordial heaven realm. The primordial wraith realm. According to legends, when the divinities first appeared, they used many methods to gain the trust of humanity in the primordial heaven realm. The divinities once entered the primordial wraith realm and tried to contact the evil creatures. but they failed to make contact with the demons. The divinities once tried to study the evil creatures, but found that the evil creatures were born from primal chaos and nature. They were living beings manifested from the laws of reality. They had a deep understanding of the essence of the infinite worlds and couldn't accept the existence of the divinities. This was the end of the explanation for the existence of world. The primordial heaven realm was under the complete control of the divinities, so it was almost impossible for humanity to bypass the divinities to investigate the mysteries of the world. Gu Qingshan pulled his hand back and silently shook his head. Seems like there are some things I need to ask myself. Gu Qingshan tapped his inventory bag and took out 2 pills. Putting them in his mouth, he clasped his hands together and formed a hand seal. Profound spirit late-stage cultivators could break through to the chaotic star realm. Vigorous spiritual energy soared into the sky from his body, using all his strength to soar into the clouds to trigger the laws of the world. Bang! Thunder rumbled. Dark clouds spread. The heavenly tribulation had arrived. An hour later, the heavenly thunder ended. In the void, all kinds of roars and screams could be heard. Ferocious faces silently appeared in the void of space. The demons were coming. Gu Qingshan looked around, opened her arms and said with a smile, "Long time no see, old friends. How have you been?" There was no sound. None of the demons responded to him. All the devils surrounded the flying ship and appeared in the air one after another. They were sizing up Gu Qingshan as if they were sizing up their prey. "It's rare to see fresh meat." A demon king licked his lips. "That's right, the human race is about to go extinct. If we don't eat it now, we won't be able to in the future," a ghost king said coldly. "Unfortunately, there's something wrong with this person's head. We don't even know him. Why would he greet us?" Another female ghost king said. "Don't try to steal it from me, I want to eat him," another demon king said. "Those arms and legs are mine. Give me the head, I'll take the body." The evil creatures were dividing the rights of the food. Gu Qingshan's hands froze. Listening to the evil creatures' conversation, he suddenly realized something. He only became acquainted with the evil creatures in the phantom images of the previous era. At the time, he had been training from Qi training all over again, coming into frequent contact with the evil creatures and slowly became familiar with them. But in this phantom image, he didn't come into contact with the evil creatures at all. This was really a headache. Gu Qingshan rubbed his forehead for a while before putting it down. In the darkness of the night, the evil creatures were already howling as they charged forward. This was the perfect time to enjoy human flesh. Without a choice, Gu Qingshan could only grab 2 swords from the void of space. "Very well, I'm not in the mood to drink with you lot right now," he sighed and murmured. About 10 minutes later, "Brat, kill us if you can, what kind of tribulation is this?" one of the demon kings roared in anger. Gu Qingshan walked forward, clenched his fist, and punched the demon king's head. Without a sound, he punched again and again until the ghost king puppet fainted. Only then did he stop. "Brat, I advise you to let us go. You only manage to win against us by relying on your tribulation," one of the demon kings coldly spoke. Gu Qingshan rubbed his hand, slowly walked up to the demon king, and began to kick his vitals. One kick, one kick, one kick, one kick, one kick. The demon king was soaked in cold sweat, unable to say a single word. It was now that Gu Qingshan stopped. In front of him, all the demon kings and devil kings had their limbs cut off, neatly lined up on the floor of the airship. After dealing with so many demon kings and devil kings, Gu Qingshan was a bit tired. He wiped his sweat, leaned against the airship, and slowly sat down on the ground. In the sky, the lightning tribulation had already faded away, but the intense wind hadn't stopped. This meant that the tribulation wasn't over yet. Because all the evil creatures who came to face the tribulation were still on the airship, none of them able to leave. Gu Qingshan was stunned for a while. He was thinking about the Wraith Realm and Heaven Realm bit by bit. One of the Devil Kings couldn't help himself and shouted, "Brat, what exactly are you trying to do?" Gu Qingshan stood up again and walked in front of the Devil King. He took a deep breath and raised his fist. He infused spirit energy into his fist and punched the Devil King. The Devil King was struck speechless for a while. After beating him up, Gu Qingshan returned to where he was and sat down. He continued to blankly stare. The evil creatures exchanged glances. Could it be that the last survivor of humanity is a madman? What should I do? I can't just stay here like this, unable to live or die. Those who tried to sneak out of this world were all cut in half by a sword flash and died on the spot. Both my arms and legs have been cut off, so it's going to take a lot of effort to go back. I can't do it in a split second. Just what do I have to do for him to let me go? One of the female Devil Kings softened her voice and softly asked, "Young man, what do you need this servant to do for you?" Gu Qingshan stood up again and walked in front of the female Devil King. The female Devil King nervously stared at him, but still managed to squeeze out a bewitching smile on her face. "Whatever you want, I'll agree to it." Gu Qingshan looked at her and suddenly smiled. He finally spoke. "You don't have any arms or legs, so I won't make it hard for you, but you have to tell me honestly where you want to go." The female Devil King froze. The other Devil Kings and Devil Kings didn't know what to say. This person is seriously sick. For evil creatures, the last thing they fear is a human that they've already seen through. Once the evil creatures know that you want something, everything will become very troublesome. No matter how noble your goal is, they will always have a way to take you down the abyss of corruption, slowly and patiently corrode everything about you until they take away your soul. Only humans who are too unique, because they can't be moved by any desires or temptations, and the evil creatures can't even guess what they want to do, can make the evil creatures feel helpless. "I want to return to the Shadow Mountain realm," the female Devil King dryly replied. "Sure," Gu Qingshan replied. "Can I go back?" the female Devil King asked. "You can. Tell me the method to return to the Shadow Wraith realm, then you can go," Gu Qingshan replied. The female Devil King froze briefly, then smiled. "That's not a problem, as long as you're willing to go." The heaven's tribulation had suppressed her power, making her only slightly stronger than the person facing the tribulation. If this psychopath dared to go to the Shadow Mountain, she swore to make him suffer a fate worse than death. The female Devil King happily chanted an incantation and reminded him. This incantation requires wind and blood to activate. For example, like this. After a bit of preparation, the female Devil King coughed up some blood. Without any limbs, this was the only thing she could do. Gu Qingshan silently memorized the incantation. He allowed her to disappear in front of him. The evil creatures all looked at him in disbelief. This brat wants to go to the world of evil creatures? If he dares to go, he'll definitely die there. Chapter 8:21. Gu Qingshan walked in front of the second Fiend King. He crouched down and looked at the other party. "Tell me how you got back," the Fiend King smirked. "I can bring you back with me." "No need." Gu Qingshan looked at the long line of fiends and devils behind him. "I haven't decided which one I'm going to play with yet." The Fiend King saw him raising the sword in his hand and hurriedly said, "In the darkness, using your fingers as the light source and sound as the guide, you will need a total of 39 chants." He chanted a long string of incantations. Gu Qingshan carefully listened and memorized the incantation. After chanting the incantation, the Fiend King slowly disappeared in front of him. He went back. Gu Qingshan walked towards the next Fiend King. The Fiend King rolled his eyes and said, "Chant this incantation after me." Gu Qingshan drew his sword and swung it at the Fiend King's body. Blood splattered. The Fiend King was cut in half. He looked at Gu Qingshan unwillingly and used the last of his strength to ask, "Why?" Gu Qingshan casually replied, "Fiend King from the fallen prison, every time you turn your eyes, you must be thinking about how to trick people. Do you think I don't know?" The Fiend King couldn't say a single word and slowly lost his life. The other Fiend Kings and Fiend Kings were completely silent. After a while, one of the Fiend Kings muttered to himself, "That's impossible, how could he understand the fallen wraiths so well?" Gu Qing Shan walked towards the next Fiend King. He stared at the Fiend King without saying a word. The Fiend King hurriedly said, "Use wind and lightning to fuse in your mouth. Chant the 18 chants." He chanted the incantation and slowly disappeared in front of Gu Qing Shan. Gu Qing Shan nodded and walked towards the next Fiend King. The Fiend King looked at him and whispered, "I have a secret artifact. As long as you obtain it, it will be able to take you to any world you want." Gu Qing Shan cut off his head with a single strike. "Why?" One of the Fiend Kings couldn't help but shout. Gu Qing Shan replied, "This guy has never been honest. Who doesn't know that its secret treasure can only send people to the extreme ice demon nest's 1950th floor? That floor is filled with the eternal night ice, even divinities can't easily escape." The fiends and fiends looked at him in silence again. The look in their eyes changed. "This isn't a retard. I don't know what this thing is, it's too creepy." The demons didn't want to think otherwise. Right now, they just wanted to go home. Time. The Fiend King was a Black Shan Devil King with a handsome face and king. The Fiend King was a Qing Shan with a Demon King. He looked like a human, but he had a long, pointed tail on his back. He King Gu RRR of the Gu Qing Shan. Gu Qing Shan silently noted it down and said, "Xie Fiend King, there are no other evil creatures here right now, so you don't need to be afraid of them laughing at you for being a coward." "What do you mean?" The Xie Fiend King smiled apologetically. Gu Qing Shan replied, "I have a question for you. You must answer me properly, otherwise I'll kill you." The Xie Fiend King was shocked, but respectfully replied, "Please go ahead." Gu Qing Shan took a deep breath and solemnly asked, "Did the desolate monsters and divinities invade the primordial wraith realm?" The one in front of him was the weakest and most cowardly Fiend King. He was also the breakthrough point for everything. That was why he used various methods to subdue all the evil creatures and left this one for last. The Xie Fiend King replied, "They did." Gu Qing Shan asked, "What was the result?" The Fiend King replied, "Evil creatures are not tasty. Eating them would only make the desolate monsters and divinities feel extremely uncomfortable, and it didn't bring them any benefits. Even the primordial wraith realm was filled with spirit energy that made them uncomfortable, so to prevent the wraith realm from becoming stronger, they split the primordial wraith realm into several thousand pieces before leaving." Gu Qing Shan went silent. Who would have thought the primordial wraith realm would also end up like that? "Xie Fiend King, you've answered a very important question. I will now reward you with a secret," he said. The Fiend King appeared to be listening attentively. Gu Qing Shan continued, "In truth, your wife had already hooked up with the cruel bone Devil King a long time ago, while you've been living your life in a drunken stupor, not even taking care of the wraith realm or improving your strength. Everyone now thinks of you as a worthless wastrel. Furthermore, the reason why you haven't died yet is because the cruel bone Devil King thinks that it's very interesting. He enjoys the feeling of being cuckolded by you. Of course, he also thinks that it's best for your woman and your territory to remain as they are, so you're still alive and your wraith realm hasn't been annexed yet, even though it already belongs to the cruel bone Devil King." The Xie Fiend King froze. He was stunned for a very long time. Gu Qing Shan sighed. "In truth, I won't interfere with the matters between the two of you. After all, wherever there are evil creatures, there will always be grudges, and I don't want to get involved." Gu Qing Shan lightly swung her sword. "But I hope that when you die, you'll know what's going on." She pulled her sword back. Gu Qing Shan let go of the sword and let it disappear into the void of space. On the ground, the Xie Fiend King had already been cut into countless pieces. There were no more evil creatures on the airship. It was completely silent. The sea breeze continued to blow. Gu Qing Shan stood blankly in front of the Xie Fiend King's corpse for a very long time. Finally, an autumn water clear blue sword once again appeared from the void of space and turned into a cold beauty with a delicate face. Shanu. She couldn't hold back her emotions anymore. Gongzi, are you alright today? Shanu asked caringly. I'm fine, Gu Qingshan replied. Why do I feel like you're acting a bit strange? Because I've been thinking about something over and over again. Because this matter is too important and I can't afford any mistakes, I can't help but feel a bit nervous. Is it about the Heaven Sword? Yes, Shanu thought for a bit and asked. Did Gongzi capture these evil creatures just to obtain the incantation to return to the Wraith Realm? I didn't, Gu Qingshan slowly explained. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but through their incantations and how they're used, I found out that the evil creatures actually know how to use the 5 unique powers of wind, lightning, light, dark, sound, but the age-of-old cultivators and even the desolate monsters didn't seem to know how to deal with the 5 unique elements. That's why there's a reason why the evil creatures were able to continue to exist. He picked up a piece of the Xieqi Fiend King's flesh. Seeing his actions, Shanu seemed to understand a bit. Gongzi, you want to? While they were talking, Gu Qingshan had turned back into the Xieqi Fiend King. He threw the piece of flesh away, held the jade disc that led to the next phantom image in his hand, used a few dozen hand seals to seal it away, then put it away in a jade box. Shanu couldn't understand again. Seeing her expression, Gu Qingshan explained, Before I killed the Devil King just now, I wasn't spacing out. It was because there was a sealing technique on the jade disc on the airship, so I studied it a bit, and it turned out that I really did find a way to seal the jade disc. Shanu asked. Why did Gongzi want to seal the jade disc? Gu Qingshan replied. From the jade disc, there must be a lot more to come, and after thinking about it for a long time, I found that as long as a single part of this goes wrong, everything will be over. Gongzi doesn't trust the cultivators of the age of old? It's not that I don't trust them, but rather that we have to discard our emotions and judge from the most realistic and objective point of view. How did Gongzi come to this conclusion? For countless years in the age of old, humanity had always been suppressed, which means that the desolate monsters and divinities had the absolute advantage. This proves one thing. The monsters and divinities have always had a way to win against humanity. While listening, Shanu nodded. So Gongzi believes that they have a way to deal with the final measure left behind by the cultivators. I can't exclude this possibility, Gu Qingshan replied. It's not that I don't trust Shifu and the others, but if even one of them makes a mistake, this entire thing will be ruined. Shanu was a bit panicked and muttered. If we can't win against them even in the end, wouldn't our efforts be in vain? Gu Qingshan replied. That's not it. In truth, other than them, there are other people who can fight against the divinities and the desolate monsters. Other people? Who? Shanu asked in surprise. Of course it's me, Gu Qingshan replied. Shanu froze. Gu Qingshan slowly explained. I'm a sword cultivator. With a sword in my hand, I don't need to rely on the sacrifices of my ancestors to pave the way for everything. He looked up at the darkness of the night and muttered. I don't want to be chased around like a stray dog, nor do I want to run into a trap of the divinities that I can't even defend against, so I need power. I need the power to change all of this. Gu Qingshan clasped his hands together, using the power of lightning and wind to form the incantation to enter the Wraith Realm. Xieqi Realm, the lost abyss of bliss of all demons, open your gate for me, he chanted. An invisible gate appeared from the void of space. Let us go, yes, Gongzi. Chapter 8:22. The darkness was heavy. In this vast world, the desolate monsters were rampaging without fear. The divinities had turned into sprites of light that wandered around the sky. This was the same phantom image where humanity was heading towards destruction. After Gu Qingshan left, a distorted phantom abruptly appeared in the empty field at the center of the military camp. The phantom disappeared, revealing a person in its place. A golden flame was burning between his eyebrows. His entire body was giving off a blinding light while holding a strange coin in his hand. The golden flame divinity. He had once again returned to this phantom image. Strange, where exactly did he run off to? The divinity was slowly pacing around the military camp. The entire military camp was in shambles. All the sleeping cultivators had been cleanly devoured, the remains of their flesh and blood were everywhere, covering the ground and the walls. The divinity went from room to room, leaving a trail of bloody footprints behind. He was fully focused on analyzing the current situation. He had already searched through several hundred phantom images of the age of old. Even with his divinity's abilities, he was still feeling extremely tired after traveling through several hundred spacetime. But he still couldn't find any traces of Gu Qingshan. So he returned to this world that was being tracked by the coin and reconsidered the entire situation. All of a sudden, the golden flame divinity sensed something and turned around. The figure of light was standing not too far behind him. "Why are you here?" the golden flame divinity asked. The figure of light replied, "That coin contained the will of our ancient divine race. I noticed that you were in trouble, so I came to help you," the golden flame divinity replied. "The coin had an error, I couldn't find him in this world." The figure of light reached his hand out. "Come, give me the coin, we have already prepared the corresponding method to correct this error." The golden flame divinity paused, then asked, "You even prepared for such an error?" "Of course," the figure of light replied. Both the desolate race and our divine race couldn't just stand by and watch as humanity made their preparations." The figure of light's tone became heavier. "We are the rulers of humanity's fate, their everything is in our grasp, and their final hope will also be destroyed by us." Did the desolate race also prepare a countermeasure? The golden flame divinity tried asking. "Indeed, the humans of the primordial heaven realm must die, everything they have will be turned to ash. We will not allow them to do anything that might threaten us," the figure of light declared. "A wise decision," the golden flame divinity praised. "Give me the coin, I will use my divine craft to correct the deviation on it. That way, you will be able to directly arrive at the phantom image of the future humanity," the figure of light said. The golden flame divinity said nothing and tossed the coin over. The figure of light reached his hand out and let the coin hover above his palm. It muttered a long incantation in a low voice until the coin began to glow rhythmically. "Take it, it has been reactivated and can once again search for that human," the figure of light said. The coin flew in front of the golden flame divinity. The golden flame divinity received the coin and infused it with his divine power. "Hum!" The coin chirped loudly and brought the golden flame divinity through the void of space towards the fog of spacetime. One breath. The void opened up again. The golden flame divinity once again appeared in this world. He landed in the middle of the military camp, standing in front of the figure of light. The figure of light. The golden flame divinity. The golden flame divinity abruptly spoke. "That can't be right, the desolate coin shouldn't have deviated twice in a row," the figure of light replied. "Which means that future human must be within this phantom image." "That is indeed the case," the golden flame divinity smirked. "It seems he must have obtained some sort of unique method to hide in a certain place within this phantom image. I'm guessing that the age of old must have used some sort of method to conceal his whereabouts. That's why we were fooled." Once the figure of light spoke. "Go find him and kill him right now," the golden flame divinity replied. "Of course I have to kill him, but the coin can only take me to his world, and now that the other humans are all dead and the heaven realm is too vast, I've lost track of him." The figure of light replied. "Don't worry, we've prepared another method, it seems we can use it ahead of time." "What method?" the golden flame divinity asked. "I will let all the divinities within this phantom image know that a human has been missed. They will help you search for him. As soon as they find any information, all the divinities will kill him," the figure of light replied. The golden flame divinity paused briefly before smirking. All the divinities were mobilized to search for that human's whereabouts in the primordial heaven realm. What a horrible thing this was! Under such circumstances, the golden flame divinity felt that even he wouldn't be able to hide for too long. Since you've prepared so thoroughly, it seems I won't need to spend too much effort on this, the golden flame divinity sighed. Of course, the figure of light coldly replied, our humanity is already under our complete control. Even at this moment of destruction, they won't be able to do anything against us. The golden flame divinity looked up at the sky, only to see a few sprites of light descending towards the ground. The search was about to begin. The golden flame divinity pondered, I'll leave the continent to you, I'll take care of the ocean, go ahead. At the same time. On the ocean. At a certain part of the ocean that was extremely far away from the continent, Gu Qingshan turned into the Xie Fiend King's appearance, put the airship away, and entered the gate leading to the Wraith Realm. After he walked in, the void door slowly closed and disappeared. This part of the ocean became completely silent. Gu Qingshan was traveling through the void of space. He was quickly thinking about everything that had happened. The Xie Fiend King was the weakest and most cowardly Fiend King. He was also the weakest among the Fiend Kings. With Gu Qingshan's chaotic star realm cultivation, as long as he had a sword in his hand, he would be more than enough to deal with him. The Xie Fiend Realm was a place for other Fiend Realms to rest and relax. But this world also had a certain benefit. It was well informed. Because the evil creatures of other Fiend Realms often visited this place was the place with the most information and first-hand information on various matters. Gu Qingshan chose this world. Within the chaotic void of space, a bright purple light slowly manifested around Gu Qingshan. We're about to reach the Xie world. Gu Qingshan glanced at Shanu. Shanu nodded and silently disappeared into the void of space. A few moments later, the void of space faded away. Gu Qingshan landed on a red carpet. He found himself standing in the doorway of a magnificent castle. Two large black evil creatures were blocking his way. Fiend King, you can't go in yet. The fiendess said that she doesn't want to see you right now, one of the black evil creatures said. Gu Qingshan looked around and pondered. This place seems to be my palace. Indeed, one of the black evil creatures showed a smile that wasn't a smile. But you've always listened to the fiendess, haven't you? You should leave first and find a place to have some fun. You still have money on you right now. As for this place, wait for the fiendess' permission before you can come in and flatter her. The other black evil creature looked down at him and said. Gu Qingshan fell into thought. The Xie Fiend King seems to have already accepted his situation. Even the guards of the Fiend Palace didn't allow the Fiend King to enter. What a joke. I didn't think the Xie Fiend King would live such a miserable life. Seems like the fiendess is quite impressive. Gu Qingshan muttered in a low voice. You call yourself a Fiend King like this? One of the evil creatures didn't hear him clearly and spoke in a mocking tone. Sir Fiend King, what are you muttering now? Why don't you tell us so that we can have some fun as well? Don't worry, we won't tell Master. Hearing that, Gu Qingshan silently sighed. He explained, I mean, compared to me, a lot of Fiend Kings and Devil Kings aren't qualified enough. A cold gleam flashed. Two heads flew to the sky and fell into the depths of the Fiend Palace. Inside the castle, noises and commotion could be heard. Gu Qingshan acted like he didn't hear anything. He flicked the blood off his sword, thought about the Xie Fiend King's situation, and couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 8:23. The Xie Fiend Realm used to be a barren wasteland of the primordial Wraith Realm. There had never been any natural treasures of the Wraith Realm here, nor were there any natural conditions that could help the evil creatures grow stronger. No evil creatures were interested in this place. That's why after the primordial Wraith Realm was destroyed and the Xie Fiend King took over this place, no other Fiend Kings coveted it. After killing two evil creatures, Gu Qingshan walked along the long hallway of the palace. After a few steps, a group of Xie Fiends who were responsible for guarding the place came to greet him. They were jet black in color and looked similar to humans, with long spikes on their tails. The captain of the guards shouted, "Fiend King, you can't enter the palace, otherwise we'll have no choice but to be rude." Gu Qingshan ignored him. He walked past the group of guards and continued forward. Strangely, all the guards stood still without moving, none of them tried to stop him. It wasn't until his figure disappeared that an intense sword-infused wind swept through the entire hallway. All the guards were turned into minced meat and scattered by the wind. After Gu Qingshan walked a bit further, another group of evil creatures appeared in front of him. These evil creatures were clearly stronger than the ones from before. The leader of the evil creatures tried to persuade him. "Sir Fiend King, you can't go any further, otherwise, if Master finds out about what happened here, your allowance for next month will be gone." Sure enough, Gu Qingshan stopped. "Allowance?" He face-bombed, feeling speechless towards the Xie Fiend King. As a Fiend King, everything was controlled by his wife. He couldn't even return home, he had to hand over all his money. Of course, the latter part was negotiable. But the Fiendess clearly had full control over the Fiend King, as well as this entire Wraith realm, and even made the Xie Fiend King wear a green hat. But that wasn't the case at all. Gu Qingshan didn't waste any time. His flying sword appeared from the void of space and slashed. The vast white crescent sword phantom circled around Gu Qingshan once. Rumble rumble. Amidst the splattering of flesh and blood, the entire palace was cut open. As a chaotic star realm cultivator, Gu Qingshan's spirit energy was much stronger than before. When he activated his sword seal, a large amount of spirit energy flowed into the flying sword, turning into a powerful secret art. The few surviving devils were stunned by this powerful force and couldn't help but retreat to the side. An angry female voice rang out. "Which bastard dares to touch my palace?" In the depths of the distant palace, a graceful figure leaped into the sky and flew over. Such a huge commotion finally alerted her. The demoness landed in front of Gu Qingshan and roared angrily, "So it's you, you good-for-nothing. How dare you destroy the palace? Do you want to die?" Gu Qingshan answered calmly, "I am the demon king of this realm." The demoness sneered, "Do you think that besides yourself, who else would treat you as the demon king?" Gu Qingshan glanced at her. How fast could a glance be? Several protective treasures rose from the demoness body, but she was unable to react in time. The thick disdain on the demoness face froze, and her entire head fell to the ground. Her headless body fell to the ground. Gu Qingshan stared at the demoness body and waited for a while. Gray mist rose from the corpse and formed a short incantation. The incantation suddenly disappeared, as if something from the void of space had caught it. Several dozen strands of mist descended from the sky and gathered around the demoness body. A withered hand reached out, grabbed the demoness hair, and lifted her head up. The cruel bone devil king. He had a pair of dark wings, a lanky figure, and a haggard face. "How regretful, you were killed so abruptly, I didn't even have time to rush over to save you." The cruel bone devil king stared at the demoness' seductive appearance and sighed regretfully. Gu Qingshan looked at him, then at the powerful subordinates around him, and cleared her throat. "Thank you for coming here directly, it saved me a lot of trouble, so if you're done mourning, please turn around, I have a deal to discuss with you." The cruel bone devil king didn't even look at him, only staring blankly at the demoness head for a while. After a while, he slowly spoke. "Your entire Wraith realm is mine, what do you have to make a deal with me?" Gu Qingshan replied. "Please give me the cruel bone devil realm's elemental roots, I have a use for it." The cruel bone devil king finally turned around to look at him and tried asking, "Which great one are you speaking for? Or is someone trying to steal my Wraith realm?" "No," Gu Qingshan replied. "I'm the one who wants to make a deal with you. As if this was the first time the cruel bone devil king saw him, he observed him for a while before asking his subordinates, "Am I dreaming, or has the pitiful Xie Fiend King gone mad?" The attendants roared with laughter. An extremely cowardly fiend dared to ask the cruel Bone Devil King for the Wraith Realm's elemental roots. What other explanation could there be other than going mad? Gu Qingshan sincerely told him. I'm serious, you can use the cruel Bone Devil Realm's elemental roots to exchange for your life right now. While they were talking, a gentle breeze started to pick up from the ruins of the palace. This breeze surrounded the evil creatures and slowly formed an impenetrable encirclement. The wind was invisible, formless, and all-pervasive. Countless tiny sword phantoms gathered to form a gust of wind that enveloped one of the evil creatures, pierced and slashed through it countless times. The evil creatures only saw it being brushed by the breeze before disappearing from where it was. Only the faint smell of blood remained in the air. The wind became stronger. It was blowing from the evil creatures' bodies, whistling by their ears, sweeping in every direction and enveloping every inch of space. Gu Qingshan shrugged. Just look, I could have killed all of your subordinates, but I've only taken the life of a single evil creature. This has already shown my sincerity. Please consider my offer. The cruel Bone Devil King stood there, feeling the cold wind blowing against his body, his heart sinking to the bottom. This is swordsmanship, could it be you're a cultivator? He shouted in a low voice. Gu Qingshan raised a finger. Blinding arcs of lightning flickered at the tip of his finger. The cruel Bone Devil King was surprised. Elemental lightning, you're not human, he pondered. Gu Qingshan replied. I'm sorry, I don't have much time for you to think. 10 breaths worth of time. The cruel Bone Devil King stared at him and spoke in a low voice. I need a bit more time to think. Fine, Gu Qingshan helplessly replied. As soon as he said so, the heart sword moved. The cruel Bone Devil King's soul vessel was shocked by Gu Qingshan's sword intent and stopped for a split second. The flying sword rose. In a split second, the glowing 6 paths great mountain sword had stabbed into the cruel Bone Devil King's chest. Gu Qingshan's elemental lightning struck. Dream jolt? The cruel Bone Devil King froze and fell into a short dream that lasted for 5 seconds. Boom! Intense sword-infused wind descended from above and enveloped the cruel Bone Devil King. Ah! The cruel Bone Devil King uttered a desperate scream. At this point, the cruel Bone Devil King had only just taken out a scepter that was shrouded in black light. He seemed to be about to unleash some sort of terrifying spell. But the sword-infused wind wasn't going to let him go. The howling wind quickly drowned out the Devil King's screams. Even his subordinates were swept into it. A few moments later, everything vanished into thin air. The cruel Bone Devil King's limbs were gone. He was lying on the ground covered in blood, his eyes filled with fear. Gu Qingshan stood still and muttered, It's already been 4 breaths, you only have 6 breaths worth of time left to reclaim your life. The cruel Bone Devil King returned to the cruel Bone Devil realm as soon as he got his life back. Gu Qingshan was holding 5 balls of light of different colors in her hand. The blue light was lightning, the white light was light, the black was darkness, the invisible but constantly producing sound was sound, and the purple was wind. Unlike the 5 elements of humanity, the Wraith Realm's 5 elements weren't metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, but rather wind, lightning, light, darkness, and sound. Very quickly, Gu Qingshan had branded these elemental origins with his inner sight. Using spirit energy to control the smithing technique, he skillfully stretched each of the mutated elemental origins into a string, then linked them together. After repeating this a few times, a long string of 5 colored light was formed. Lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. You've obtained a string of law. This is a string of law from a small Wraith realm after the primordial Wraith realm was destroyed. If you bring it to another world, this small Wraith realm will be pulled over by the string of law, slowly fusing with the other world to form a new world. Gu Qingshan sighed in satisfaction. Gongzi, you want to fuse 2 fragments of the Wraith realm together? Shanu asked. Yes, but I'm not sure if it'll be useful to me, Gu Qingshan replied. Shanu thought for a bit. When two worlds fuse, the living beings of the main realm will become stronger. Gongzi is afraid that the law of world fusion won't work on an outsider like you? That's right, we can only give it a try. If it doesn't work, we'll have to think of another way, Gu Qingshan replied. Shanu replied, it should work, because after becoming the Xieqi Fiend King, your body will become the body of this world's fiend, so the laws of the world will reflect back to you. It doesn't have sentience, so it won't be able to determine your true identity. Let's give it a try, Gu Qingshan said. He threw the string of law forward. Chapter 8:24. The string of law was tossed far away by Gu Qingshan and melted into the void of space. The 5 laws of wind, lightning, light, dark, and sound from the cruel bone fiend realm slowly seeped into the laws of this world from the surface of the Xieqi fiend realm and began to affect the two worlds. At first, nothing happened, but more and more evil creatures were able to sense the fluctuations of battle. The ruins of the palace had already been completely surrounded by evil creatures who came to check on the situation. The first evil creatures to arrive quickly told the rest of the evil creatures about how the Xieqi Fiend King tortured the cruel Bone Devil King. No one thought that the Xieqi Fiend King would be able to defeat the cruel Bone Devil King. And the Xieqi Fiend Realm was a place where all evil creatures of the Wraith Realms rest and spend their time, so news spread very quickly. Not too long after, many other Wraith Realms found out about this place. Following that, a spectacular scene unfolded. The evil creatures all screamed in shock. Gu Qingshan and Shanu also looked up at the sky. A vast continent appeared in the sky, blotting out the sun. It silently and quickly flew across the sky, heading towards the edge of the Xieqi Fiend Realm. Under the watchful eyes of countless evil creatures, the continent and the Xieqi Fiend Realm fused together. A miraculous change occurred. Underneath Gu Qingshan's feet, a transparent crystal began to grow from the ground. Demonic Origin Gem! An evil creature exclaimed. This was the currency of the Wraith Realm, capable of being used to manipulate spirit energy to perform powerful spells. The Xieqi Fiend Realm that had always been a barren wasteland, after fusing with the cruel Bone Devil Realm, its origin had clearly become richer and more abundant. Various strange and unusual things began to grow from the void of space and underground all over this world. The evil creatures began to scatter and fight for the treasures of this Wraith Realm. For a while, the entire Xieqi Fiend Realm fell into chaos. Gongzi, they're fighting for the treasures of this world, Shanu reminded him. Gu Qingshan replied and continued to carefully sense the changes in this world. Shanu was still unwilling to give up. Gongzi, you're now the Fiend King of this world, all of those things are yours, Gu Qingshan replied. It's fine, more and more Wraith Realms will fuse with us, not to mention these evil creatures, they will also belong. He suddenly stopped, and a hint of joy appeared on his face. I can feel it, my power is rapidly increasing, he muttered. The feedback from the world origin had arrived. This meant that the world recognized his identity. Just as Shanu said, he was the one who facilitated the fusion of the worlds, and since he was now the Xieqi Fiend King, the world gave him a bit of its origin in return. Gu Qingshan quickly gave a formation plate to Shanu. Shanu, protect me. Yes, young master. Shanu began to arrange layers of defensive formations. She arranged all of her strongest defensive formations at once, then wielded the 6 realms and Chao Yin swords, standing next to Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan had already closed her eyes and began to guide the trace of origin energy to help her improve her cultivation. There wasn't the slightest agitation in the spiritual power. It was in a completely calm state, but it was like a long lake after a night of rain, the water level rising steadily and silently. Gu Qingshan put his hand on his inventory bag, chose a chaotic star realm scripture from the supersized jade tag that Xie Guhong prepared for him, then used soul points to comprehend it. In just a few moments, the entire chaotic star realm's breakthrough method had been deeply engraved in his mind. Gu Qingshan silently circulated the scripture to guide the rapidly increasing spirit energy inside his dantian. Chaotic Star Realm middle stage. And then Chaotic Star Realm late stage. Just a bit more and I'll break through Chaotic Star Realm and advance to Origin Realm. His spirit energy wasn't agitated at all. The power that came from the world origin allowed Gu Qingshan's soul and body to remain in an extremely calm state. He could continue to break through. Gu Qingshan tried to release his inner sight and found that the range of his perception of the world was quickly expanding. Everything around him was becoming clearer than what he could see with his eyes. This was very good news, because both of his movement divine skills relied on the range of inner sight to activate. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but sigh emotionally. The reason why the 100 Flowers Fairy was able to break through so quickly was partly because she was already extremely talented to begin with, so much so that even the divinities were jealous of her, but also because the fusion of worlds brought about a lot of improvement. At this point, cheers could be heard from the entire Xieqi Fiend realm. The evil creatures that grew up in this world all experienced a rapid increase in strength. The entire Xieqi Fiend realm was becoming stronger. Gu Qingshan stood still and slowly smiled. He seemed to be unable to hold back his smile and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Gongzi, what's the matter? What's so funny? She couldn't help but ask. Shanu, as you know, when the Heaven's Tribulation activates, many Fiend Kings and Devil Kings will be suppressed by the Heaven's Tribulation to only be a bit stronger than me. They will come to kill me during the Heaven's Tribulation, yes, Gongzi, but this way, they won't be able to defeat me at all, and I won't have to be so careful and pick weak evil realms to wage war against. Gu Qingshan smiled. This way, I won't even have to run around, I can directly trigger the Heavens' Tribulation to draw them here. I'll be able to quickly and efficiently steal the mutated 5 elemental origins of each evil realm? Shanu froze. Gu Qingshan clenched his fist and praised. What a fitting name, Heaven's Tribulation. In the name of heaven, steal the world origins of the Fiend Kings and Devil Kings. Shanu looked at Gu Qingshan in shock and hesitantly spoke. Gongzi, that's not what the Heaven's Tribulation means. All right, for us, that's exactly what it means right now. Saying so, Gu Qingshan circulated his spirit energy to trigger the laws of heaven and earth. But the fusion of worlds hadn't finished yet, so the laws of heaven and earth hadn't manifested as the Heaven's Tribulation yet. In other words, the world still hasn't reacted. Using this chance, Gu Qingshan wouldn't need to face the chaotic star realm's Heaven's Tribulation and directly advance to the next realm. This was actually a very rare situation. Gu Qingshan thought for a bit and understood. He decided to retract his spirit energy and temporarily stop breaking through. Without the Heaven's Tribulation, the Fiend Kings and Devil Kings won't come here, and I won't be able to quickly collect the elemental origins of each Wraith realm. Are you kidding me? Do I really have to fight them one by one? That's too slow. Heaven's Tribulation is still the fastest and most convenient. Gu Qingshan silently waited for the fusion of the worlds to finish. He needed the Heaven's Tribulation right now. While waiting, he suddenly recalled something. The Heaven Sword's whereabouts are clear. I also know the desolate monsters and divinities' intentions. The fusion of the Wraith realms has proven that it can increase my cultivation. Many things are clear now. Then, Gu Qingshan glanced at the War God UI and saw a certain icon. This icon was very unique, as it depicted the scene of him wielding his sword in battle. War God Quest, in Tree's collection world, Gu Qingshan once activated the upgrade of Destiny Quest, turning it into War God Quest. The buffs that War God Quest provided him weren't as simple as the final reward. Throughout the course of the quest, a War God Quest would grant him a temporary ability to utilize soul points, which he could use during the course of the quest. Last time, Gu Qingshan received Bide, which allowed him to increase the power of his skills. Although this useful ability disappeared after the quest was over, Bide had been extremely useful in several crucial battles. And now all the conditions had been met. It was time to activate the War God quest. Gu Qingshan took a deep breath and said, "System, we're going to issue the quest." The War God UI immediately lit up. The War God quest icon appeared at the center of the UI. 3 lines of glowing text appeared below the War God quest. Where your sword points is the system's quest objective. War God quest is about to be activated. Please select the quest's final objective. The description. The harder the quest objective, the more complicated the process of completing the quest, the more powerful your soul points utilization will be. Gu Qingshan answered without hesitation. Our quest objective is to take the Heaven Sword. The War God UI paused for a brief moment. The icon of the War God quest began to glow with a blinding light. Following that, lines of text related to the quest appeared. According to all known reports, the War God quest will now be issued. Quest description. This is the elegy of humanity from the age of old. The desolate monsters and the divinities came to an agreement to destroy humanity as a whole, and almost succeeded. However, humanity managed to forge the twin swords Heaven and Earth at the very last moment. Legend has it that the one who wields the twin swords Heaven and Earth will be able to slay the divinities who once ruled over humanity. Quest description. As humanity was slowly being wiped out, you traveled through the endless passage of time to arrive here, followed by powerful pursuers. In front of you are the desolate monsters and the divinities' various suppressive and destructive measures. You must overcome all enemies and difficulties to finally take the Heaven Sword. Quest objective. Take the Heaven Sword. Quest reward. This quest's difficulty far surpasses any quest you have ever faced before. It will greatly affect the fate of humanity as a whole, perhaps even affecting all living beings in the infinite world. Considering this, the War God quest will be linked to War God title, setting a corresponding quest reward according to your combat prowess. Below the War God UI, the icon of the War God title slowly floated up to the center of the UI and merged with the quest. Gu Qingshan was stunned. Linked? This was the first time he had ever seen both the War God quest and War God title being linked to this quest. A few moments later, new lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. Description. You carry both the identity of a human and a devil king, created an unprecedented iris sword technique, as well as began to cultivate swordsmanship above the sword saint realm. Your fame of strength and cruelty has long spread among the evil creatures. Thus, the War God title has been prepared. A description. War God title and War God quest have been linked, forming a unique soul points usage method for this quest. During this War God quest, you have obtained a temporary War God title. A temporary War God title. Sword Demon. When you complete this War God quest, the Sword Demon title will solidify as your personal War God title. Chapter 825. The sky was gloomy. The sun, moon, and stars had all disappeared. The golden flame divinity floated to the surface of the ocean and looked up at the sky. The fog of death, he murmured softly, with an unprecedented uneasiness in his tone. The fog of death would slowly permeate the entire primordial heaven realm, changing this place into a place suitable for the desolate monsters to live. Indeed, once the fog of death completely enveloped the primordial heaven realm, all the desolate monsters would come here. The desolate world couldn't actually be considered a world, it was only a cage for the desolate monsters, used to conveniently guard the broken door. The golden flame divinity sighed deeply. It had been a few days since he returned to this world and continued his search for Gu Qingshan. During these days, the divinities of old had tried everything they could, but still couldn't find Gu Qingshan's whereabouts. Even the golden flame divinity had to use all of his power, and he couldn't find Gu Qingshan either. The golden flame divinity even suspected that Gu Qingshan had already been eaten. When he told this to the figure of light, the figure of light immediately went to look for the desolate race in this phantom image. That was yesterday, but the figure of light still hadn't returned even until this evening. The golden flame divinity once again dove into the ocean and continued his search. He still hadn't given up and was still trying his best to find Gu Qingshan's whereabouts. A few hours later, the golden flame divinity floated to the surface of the ocean. There weren't any special hiding spots in the sea abyss. At this point, the figure of light appeared in front of him. How was it? What did the desolate race say? The golden flame divinity immediately asked. They only know how to eat humans, they didn't care about me at all and chased me out, the figure of light calmly replied. Those arrogant fools, the golden flame divinity gritted his teeth. It's fine, their apocalypse is about to arrive, there's no need to be angry, the figure of light replied. I'm not angry, it's just that we still don't know if Gu Qingshan was eaten by them or if she's still alive, the golden flame divinity replied. Indeed, that's a bit troublesome, the figure of light replied. The golden flame divinity thought for a bit and said, This is only a phantom image of an era. How about we kidnap a desolate general and use him to search for Gu Qingshan? What do you want to do? The figure of light asked. The golden flame divinity replied, The desolate race's fate has already been decided. We'll capture a monster before they die and check its memories to see if there's any information about Gu Qingshan. The figure of light went silent briefly before replying. That's fine, but we can't let anyone know. Otherwise, even if Gu Qingshan is still in this phantom image, you and I would still be hunted down by the desolate race, unable to care about him. I understand. We'll take our time to plan this out and make sure that everything is flawless, the golden flame divinity replied. 2 days later, a huge humanoid monster was immersed in the seawater, slowly sinking into the abyss of the sea. This was the corpse of a desolate general. On the surface of the sea, 7 or 8 figures shrouded in radiance floated quietly. The plan was very successful. The 9 divinities acted at the same time and took down the lone desolate general right away. As soon as the interrogation was over, the answer the divinities received made them feel dejected. The desolate race didn't have any information about Gu Qingshan. All the divinities fell into deep thought. The figure of light spoke. Humanity's methods couldn't achieve this, they couldn't hide from us, nor could they hide from the desolate race, so if Gu Qingshan is still in this phantom image, he wouldn't be able to escape our search. The golden flame divinity suddenly asked. What if he isn't in the heaven realm? That's impossible, the worlds we created are under strict control, we wouldn't allow any living beings to enter, the figure of light replied. The golden flame divinity replied. That's not what I meant was, other than the primordial heaven realm, isn't there also the primordial wraith realm? The primordial wraith realm. The other divinities trembled. Indeed, it's very possible that that cultivator went to the primordial wraith realm. This was the best explanation for the current situation. The figure of light went silent briefly, then spoke. The primordial wraith realm was torn into several thousand pieces by us and the desolate race. It might take a bit of time to find him. As long as we can find him, a bit of time is nothing, the golden flame divinity replied. First of all, we need to ask around and see if there's anything that caught the attention of the evil creatures in the wraith realm recently. That's easy, evil creatures are the easiest to bribe. The figure of light took out a bright diamond and placed it on his palm. He chanted a long incantation. A few moments later, a fist-sized wraith with fangs appeared from the void of space. The fist-sized wraith landed on the bright diamond and carefully observed it. This gem is quite nice, I'll be taking it, ask me whatever you want, the fist-sized wraith said. Has anything major happened in the wraith realm recently? The figure of light asked. Something major? There's a large-scale realm war every day, as well as news of secrets and treasures, so it's best if you ask specifically, the fist-sized wraith said. Has anything strange happened in the wraith realm recently, something that hasn't happened before, something that shocked the evil creatures the most? The golden flame divinity asked. The fist-sized wraith answered without hesitation. Yeah, there was indeed such a thing. Speak. The fist-sized wraith cleared its throat and continued. There was a fiend king who managed to fuse 11 wraith realms in just a few days. Strangely enough, this fiend king didn't even start a war, but the origin of those worlds had already fallen into his hands. Even more strangely, no fiend king or devil king dared to seek revenge from him. They simply accepted this fact without any hesitation. Furthermore, the place called the Xie Fiend Realm was said to have experienced 3 heavens tribulations recently. Do you know about heavens tribulations? That's something that only human cultivators face. Other than the fiend kings and devil kings, no one knows why heaven's tribulations would descend upon the wraith realm. I've tried to spy on a fiend king while he was drunk, but that fiend king kept repeating that he wasn't human, so I didn't get any other valuable information. The divinities all listened seriously. It's him, the golden flame divinity muttered. The figure of light immediately said, We want the incantation to travel to the Xie Fiend Realm. The fist-sized wraith was a bit surprised, but still uttered the incantation. The figure of light, the golden flame divinity, and the other divinities all chanted the incantation. Instantly, they disappeared from the primordial heaven realm. Only the fist-sized wraith and its gemstone remained. The fist-sized wraith looked at the empty sea, then at the desolate corpses floating on the surface of the sea, then realized something. It clicked its tongue. Damn it, I was only selling information, but I seem to have gotten into trouble this time. No, I need to quickly hide it. Hugged the gemstone and disappeared into the void of space. The Xie Fiend Realm. A brand new, luxurious palace. This was the Xie Fiend King's residence. But Gu Qingshan wasn't in the palace. In a market a few hundred miles away from the palace, there was a famous fiend bar. Gu Qingshan was sitting in front of the window, enjoying some fine wine from the wraith realm. All of a sudden, he sensed something. Putting the bottle down, Gu Qingshan tapped his inventory bag without hesitation and took out a jade box. She opened the box, took out the jade disc, and lightly closed it. After doing that, Gu Qingshan left the bar and looked up at the sky. 7 to 8 majestic rays of light were descending from the sky. Divinities. The divinities had entered the wraith realm. Sensing the unique aura coming from the divinities, the entire wraith realm fell into chaos and chaos. A furious roar resounded from the Fiend King's palace. Damn divinities, why did you come to the wraith realm? An armored Fiend King brought several dozen powerful fiends and devils to the sky. Without any desolate monsters to invade, he wasn't afraid of a few divinities. The dignified voices of the divinities resounded from the sky. Fiend King, you must not offend the divinities, otherwise the consequences will be unpredictable. While they were talking, the divinities had already attacked first. What a sly bastard! Gu Qingshan hid among the group of fiends and devils, silently watching the battle in the sky. The heavens tribulation had already exposed his identity as a human. After breaking through 3 realms in a row and fusing over a dozen worlds together, his identity was as clear as day. But Gu Qingshan didn't choose to go against the Fiend King and Devil King of the Wraith Realm. He casually offered the fused Wraith Realm to a particularly powerful Fiend King. And now that Fiend King was the true king of this world. Gu Qingshan used his contribution to the Wraith Realm to continue staying in the Wraith Realm. He turned into an unassuming fiend and easily escaped from the other fiends and devils' line of sight. At this point, Gu Qingshan's expression was solemn as he scanned through the divinities in the sky. The figure of light had brought 7 to 8 divinities to face the Fiend King. Only a single divinity with a golden flame burning between his eyebrows remained. It was releasing streaks of light towards the ground, conducting some sort of investigation. Gu Qingshan stared closely at it and carefully sensed its power. Too strong. Even though I've reached Void Beholder Realm, I'm still a ways off from being able to compare to him. Gu Qingshan shook his head regretfully. I need to become stronger, until I surpass Xie Guhong to be able to win against him. I need more time. Gu Qingshan pulled his gaze back. While all the fiends and devils were leaving the bar, Gu Qingshan returned to the bar and casually took out a bottle of fiend liquor. He walked to a secluded corner of the bar and set up a temporary concealment formation. After taking a sip, Gu Qingshan put her hand on the jade disc. The seals on the jade disc immediately disappeared. The jade disc immediately sensed the spirit energy waves that had already surpassed the norm from Gu Qingshan's body. A transparent ripple came from the jade disc and silently enveloped Gu Qingshan, disappearing from the Wraith realm. No, not disappearing from the Wraith realm. Under the guidance of the jade disc, he left this phantom image of the age of old and headed towards the next secret phantom image of humanity. This was all happening in a fiend's bar several hundred miles away from the Wraith Palace. Chapter 826. When Gu Qingshan left the Xie Fiend realm, the battle in the sky was still going on. But the golden flame divinity had already searched through the entire Xie Fiend realm. There were no humans in this realm. If this was during the era of humanity's prosperity, the primordial heaven realm, it would have been very difficult for him to find Gu Qingshan. But now, Gu Qingshan was the only human cultivator in the entire primordial Wraith realm. She was like a white pearl in a pile of coal, extremely eye-catching. The golden flame divinity could easily find Gu Qingshan through the spirit energy fluctuations of a cultivator. But he couldn't sense any spirit energy fluctuations from a cultivator. The golden flame divinity pondered and gestured to the figure of light. The divinities slowly retreated. In the end, while fighting against the Fiend King, they retreated from the Xie Fiend realm. After the Xie Fiend King forced the divinities to retreat, his reputation skyrocketed in the primordial Wraith realm. After returning to the primordial heaven realm, the golden flame divinity held the desolate coin in his hand. Seeing that, the figure of light said, "The coin has taken you through 2 phantom image warps in a row, it can't be used again for now." The golden flame divinity roared unwillingly. "I really don't know where Gu Qingshan went. Did he leave the Xie Fiend realm and go to another Wraith realm? Or did he directly leave this phantom image?" There were countless phantom images, and there were thousands of Wraith realms. Either way, it wasn't easy to find him. At this point, the figure of light spoke again. "Go back, there's no need to stay here." "Why? I still haven't killed him," the golden flame divinity replied. "You don't need to kill him, leave the rest to me. Do you have any good ideas?" The figure of light replied. "During the age of old, we don't know exactly what humanity did at the very last moment, but we know that these phantom images were set up to conceal something. That's why, even though we don't know where humanity was hiding at the very last moment, we used many methods and managed to find a few intermediate links that they set up in the phantom images. Within those unique phantom images, we had already prepared a way to completely destroy those phantom images. Now, since we can't find out where that person is, and we can't learn the last secret of the human race from him, we'll activate all means and destroy the secret links that the human race has set up. In this way, although we won't be able to find out the secret, the cultivator you're chasing will also be unable to reach the final secret. This matter has been completely severed." The golden flame divinity nodded as he listened. If they couldn't find Gu Qingshan, this was naturally the best choice. As long as Gu Qingshan could not reach that final step, nothing would happen. The golden flame divinity pondered for a bit and said, "If that's the case, I can rest assured. Then, I will wait for a bit longer until the coin can be used again." The figure of light asked, "You still want to kill him?" That is the reason I came here. It's just that it's a bit less urgent now," the golden flame divinity replied. "Very well, I'll be going first. I need to destroy those unique phantom images," the figure of light said. "That would be for the best, the future of the divine race would also be stable," the golden flame divinity replied. The figure of light nodded and vanished without a trace. At another location, Gu Qingshan was traveling through the void of space. This was a chaotic area of space and time, with countless phantom images of the age of old occasionally appearing in the endless void. There were several times where Gu Qingshan almost ran into one of the phantom images. If that happened, he would have arrived at another point in time during the age of old. Fortunately, the jade disc would always control the direction and bring him to a specific location. Finally, he arrived at the next unique phantom image. In a bookkeeping room filled with jade tags, Gu Qingshan appeared. As soon as he appeared, someone quickly dragged him out of the room. Gu Qingshan didn't say anything and observed the other party. This was a disciple of Baron Cloud Heavenly Palace, wearing the most common disciple uniform, hurriedly running while shouting, "Hurry! The disciple tournament is about to begin, you've already signed up. Why are you still spacing out in the bookkeeping room?" Gu Qingshan smiled. "I suddenly remembered that there was a technique that might be useful, so I went to the bookkeeping room to look for it," the disciple sighed. "I really have to give it to you, Hurry, it's your turn to compete soon." "All right," Gu Qingshan replied. The two of them flew to a public square before stopping their footstep. Not too far away, a tall platform was erected at the center of the square. There were cultivators standing on top of a platform, currently engaged in a spellcasting competition. Several great cultivators silently hovered in the sky, watching the competition between the disciples below. The peak masters were all present. Gu Qingshan's gaze passed through the peak masters. His gaze met with fine sound peak master Luo Bingley. Luo Bingley lightly nodded. Right after that, she sent her voice. "Very well, since you were able to break through Radiant Soul and reach Void Beholder Realm in the previous phantom image, your chances of surviving in this phantom image should be much higher. What's going to happen here?" Gu Qingshan asked through her inner sight. Luo Bingley replied, "In this era, the desolate monsters will launch the first invasion in history, inflicting unprecedented damage and corruption on humanity. Countless cultivators will be eaten by them, countless sects will also be destroyed. What's my goal in coming here?" Gu Qingshan continued to ask. "There is a desolate lord that carries a unique desolate coin, it will be killed in this war, and that unique desolate coin in its hand has some sort of power that can counter the divinities. In history, not too long after this coin appeared, it was immediately taken away by the divinities. You must perform well in this battle. That way, when the desolate lord dies and you reach for the coin, no one will be able to stop you. At that time, I will also help you block the interference of others." Gu Qingshan asked. "If that's the case, I'll have to leave this world as soon as I get the coin?" Luo Bingley replied. "Indeed, that coin is too important. As soon as you obtain it, you must immediately leave." "How do I leave this phantom image?" Gu Qingshan asked. "Take this jade disc. When you want to leave, use your spirit energy to activate it." Gu Qingshan felt something in his hand. He looked down to see that it was a jade disc. The jade disc looked exactly the same as the other jade discs, except for the word Zhen Sui engraved at the center. He put the jade disc into his chest pocket. The jade disc then reattached itself to the other jade disc. At the same time, lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. "You've obtained the basic unit of the jade disc. The system can now display its information. Item name: Heaven Realm Rotation Jade Disc, incomplete. Grade: Unique Doomsday Chronicles. This item is a secret among secrets, the crystallization of humanity's greatest wisdom, unknown to the masses. War God skills. From now on, you may learn how to create the Heaven Realm Rotation Jade Disc." Gu Qingshan only glanced through it briefly before ignoring it. He put the jade disc away and asked, "How long until the desolate monsters invade?" Luo Bingley replied, "About now." Boom! A deafening roar rang out from all directions. The earth trembled. Countless desperate screams resounded. The sun in the sky disappeared without a trace. The entire world was plunged into darkness. "What's going on?" the perching Cloud Peak Master sternly asked. "The sect master isn't here. We'll have to go take a look," Luo Bingley replied. The Peak Masters all nodded their heads. "The tournament will not stop. The elders will oversee it, all disciples will continue, the ancient Dawn Peak Master declared. Understood, all the disciples replied. The Peak Master's figures flashed and disappeared from the barren cloud heaven's grotto. Gu Qingshan slightly moved his body. It seems the war is about to begin. After this, I'll just have to participate in the battle. With the elemental lightning dream jolt, my own swordsmanship, as well as my current Void Beholder realm strength, it shouldn't be too hard for me to display the talents and excellence of a Heavenly Palace disciple. While he was thinking that, the ground began to shake intensely. Seems like the desolate monster's invasion is going to be a frenzied and brutal one, Gu Qingshan silently thought. A few moments later, boom! An unimaginable force rushed into the barren cloud heaven's grotto and struck the ancient Dawn Peak. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the entire ancient Dawn Peak was blown to smithereens. Gu Qingshan scowled. Something doesn't seem right. He clearly remembered that even after a few years, when he joined the sect to meet Xie Guhong, the ancient Dawn Peak was still perfectly fine. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but form a presence concealment hand seal and retreated to the most inconspicuous corner of the crowd. A few moments later, 2 corpses fell from the sky. Bang! Bang! The corpses hit the ground with a dull thud. Many female disciples screamed. The crowd fell into chaos, because the corpses that fell to the ground were the corpses of the Perching Cloud Peak Masters and Clearwater Peak Masters. Gu Qingshan's pupils dilated. What's going on? In the later eras, these 2 Peak Masters were clearly still alive and well, so why did they die here? He suddenly sensed something and looked up. The void of the grotto had been torn apart. Countless divinities giving off blinding light as well as countless ferocious monsters filled the sky. Someone shouted in despair, "No! Divinities, why did they abandon us and help the desolate monsters?" Divinities, desolate monsters. They had joined forces to attack humanity. This situation had never happened before in the known history of humanity. Gu Qingshan retreated step by step. He had noticed that the current situation was extremely abnormal. Should I leave now? But I still haven't obtained the desolate coin that recorded how to counter divinities. Gu Qingshan put his hand on the Heaven Realm Rotation Jade Disc, hesitant. Luo Bingli suddenly appeared. She was covered in blood as she pressed her hand against Gu Qingshan's. Right away, Gu Qingshan noticed that the flow of time around them had slowed down. Everyone, including the divinities and desolate monsters in the sky, slowed down. Luo Bingli had activated some sort of thaumaturgy. I can only delay time for a bit, listen to me now, she quickly spoke. This phantom image has been discovered by the divinities, they're currently destroying this place. You can't keep the desolate coin anymore, the only thing you need to do right now is to leave this place and go to the next phantom image. Hurry up and leave. Hearing that, Gu Qingshan immediately infused his spirit energy into the jade disc. An invisible ripple appeared from the jade disc and enveloped him. As soon as he was about to leave, Gu Qingshan noticed that the flow of time around him was returning to normal. Luo Bingli was forming a hand seal with both hands to activate a technique. An invisible ripple appeared on her body. From the looks of it, she was also planning to escape from this phantom image. Go first, I'll find you later, she sent her voice. Got it, Gu Qingshan replied. In the sky, a divinity suddenly noticed the space-time fluctuations in this place. It was quickly flying towards Luo Bingli, raising the sharp spear in its hand. This attack was going to take her life. At this point, before Luo Bingli's hand seal could fully form, Gu Qingshan was also about to leave. Luo Bingli's eyes showed a hint of despair. While performing a space-time technique, you can't split your attention to perform other techniques, nor can you stop the hand seal in your hand, otherwise all of your previous efforts would be wasted. If she gave up on performing a space-time technique, she would naturally be able to stop the divinity's attack, but she would then be entangled by the divinity, unable to escape. If she continued to perform a space-time technique, she would be killed by the divinity. Regardless of which choice she made, she would still die. In the blink of an eye, Gu Qingshan shouted, "Continue forming the hand seal." Luo Bingli quickly made up her mind, gritted her teeth, and continued forming the hand seal in her hand. Gu Qingshan's gaze went past Luo Bingli and stared straight at the divinity. Inside his eyes, there seemed to be countless sword images surging in a frenzy. True soul-severing eyes. In a split second, the divinity disappeared from this world, then reappeared. He couldn't understand what just happened at all, so he cautiously hovered in the air, coldly staring at Gu Qingshan. But this was exactly what Gu Qingshan wanted. The jade disc in Gu Qingshan's chest had been fully activated. The jade disc lightly vibrated, then took him away from this phantom image. Luo Bingli followed right behind him. An invisible blade suddenly appeared from her hand seal, slicing through the void of space. Chapter 8:27. Within the frigid gray fog, Gu Qingshan was moving forward. The heaven's tribulation rotation jade disc was giving off an invisible force that brought him to the next phantom image. Not too far behind Gu Qingshan, a phantom image was becoming brighter and brighter, almost about to burst into flames. At some point, this phantom image became so bright that it shattered into dust within the blinding light. It scattered and disappeared within the endless fog of space-time. Gu Qingshan gritted his teeth, fully concealed his presence, then arranged layers upon layers of concealment formations without caring about the cost. Everything happened too suddenly. The divinities and desolate monsters worked together to destroy an entire phantom image. Fortunately, Luo Bingli managed to get here in time, otherwise, let alone her, even Gu Qingshan would have been in danger. Gu Qingshan recalled what happened just now. Luo Bingli was unfathomable. She could easily delay time on an ant, or even perform a time stop on it. But if the target was a divinity, the temporal technique would receive intense resistance from the divinity, making it almost impossible to succeed. But just now, when countless powerful desolate monsters and divinities were about to attack, Luo Bingli was still able to delay time. She was able to delay the enemy's time. That was an incredible feat, but even so, the two of them were almost caught up by the divinities. Gu Qingshan quickly thought about it and fell into an intense internal struggle. Inside that phantom image, there was a desolate coin that could counter the power of the divinities. The age-of-old humanity's arrangements had already been destroyed, so Gu Qingshan had lost his chance to obtain that coin. And without that coin, how much of an impact would it have on the next step? Gu Qingshan didn't know. Around him, a frigid fog filled the void of space. The Heaven Realm rotation jade disc was constantly giving off guiding power to guide him through the thick fog. Gu Qingshan avoided one phantom image after another and followed a unique path towards the next phantom image left by the age-of-old humanity. This was the moment where he was truly isolated. No one could help him. Gu Qingshan remained silent for a long time. Suddenly, she gritted her teeth and drew her sword. The sword radiance flashed. Pop! A crisp cracking sound rang out. The celestial realm rotation jade disc was shattered into pieces by his sword. The power from the jade disc disappeared. Without the power of the jade disc, Gu Qingshan instantly fell into the depths of the space-time fog. He continued to fall, brushing past countless phantom images. Gu Qingshan's face darkened. She didn't move at all. He allowed himself to fall aimlessly. At a certain moment, he suddenly fell into an inconspicuous phantom image. This was a completely random entry. Even Gu Qingshan herself didn't know that she had entered the age of old. The earth was parched. Thick smoke billowed into the sky and dyed the setting sun in the distance the color of blood. The dark red sunset gradually sank into the horizon. Amidst the ruins, Gu Qingshan arrived. He found himself standing in a pool of blood. He glanced around. Countless severed limbs and skeletons were scattered all around him. This place was like a slaughterhouse for humanity. No, from the bite marks on the skeletons, this place had clearly been thoroughly cleaned out by the desolate monsters. The monsters had already eaten their fill and left. Gu Qingshan stood still, releasing his inner sight to carefully observe his surroundings. He didn't even know what period of time he was in the Age of Old, so he needed to gather information and make a decision about his current situation. Shanu appeared from the void of space. She looked at the dark red color of blood on the ground, shocked by the scene of devastation. Even in hell, there weren't many scenes like this. Gongzi, why did you destroy the Jade Disc? You should know that without the Jade Disc's guidance, we wouldn't be able to find the Heaven Sword, Shanu doubtfully asked. Gu Qingshan paused briefly, then replied, I know that destroying the Jade Disc wasn't a good idea. Then Gongzi, I only asked myself a question. What question? Gu Qingshan slowly spoke. If I were the old divinity who came up with the plan, and I had just destroyed a secret phantom image that humanity had set up, what else would I be doing at the same time? Gu Qingshan continued. Obviously, I'm destroying all of humanity's secret phantom images. This way, no one will be able to find the true final moment of humanity's existence through these specific steps. As long as I did this, all of humanity's hopes would go up in smoke. So Gongzi destroyed the Jade Disc and decided not to go any further? Shanu asked. Gu Qingshan showed a rare expression of hesitation. I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but let's make another assumption. If I were the one who traveled from the future and tried to capture Gu Qingshan, what would I do in this situation? Shanu froze, then answered without hesitation. I don't know. Gu Qingshan continued. If I were him, I would immediately talk to the old divinities and tell them not to destroy the next phantom image, but to silently hide within it and wait for Gu Qingshan to come. Hiding is a stupid method, but it's also the safest one. The old divinities would only need to wait for Gu Qingshan to show up, then suddenly attack and capture him in one fell swoop. Hearing that, Shanu couldn't help but feel a chill and asked, would the old divinities be willing to listen to that entity? Gu Qingshan muses. They would most likely agree. When I was in the Xieqi Fiend realm, the old divinities were also searching for me, which means that they are very interested in humanity's final secret, he concluded. That's right, Gu Qingshan is too weak, so the old divinities would definitely be willing to leave behind a phantom image and wait for Gu Qingshan to take the bait. After all, it's very simple to capture him, as long as he shows up, Shanu sighed. Gongzi, I think it's too dangerous. How about you come with me back to Huangquan? The Grand Tai Wei Mountain can resist the winds of chaotic tribulation. We can hide in hell. Even the old divinities wouldn't dare to capture a devil king like you. Gu Qingshan asked. Shanu, are you afraid? Shanu shook her head. I'm not afraid of the old divinities. I'm afraid that they would take away Gongzi's soul. If that's the case, Gongzi wouldn't even have a chance to reincarnate. Gu Qingshan's gaze slowly became gentle. Don't worry, this is only the beginning. Your Gongzi has never been afraid of these pieces of trash. As he spoke softly, he stepped on the blood and walked forward. While walking, he was also changing his appearance. Isn't it just hiding? I'm actually quite familiar with this. First, he turned into a burly man, then into a white-haired old man, then into a long-bearded Taoist, then into a 7 to 8 years old child, and finally into a young man. The young man stopped, followed the blood on the ground, and looked at a tattered corpse. I'll use your appearance if fate allows. I'll take revenge for you. Thank you. After saying so, he took Shanu and disappeared from this ruin. At another location, the fog of spacetime, a phantom image of the Age of Old. Around this phantom image, countless figures were hiding in the void of space. With their strength, unless it was a great cultivator at Xie Gu Hong's level, no other human cultivator would be able to sense them hiding here. They were silently hiding here, patiently waiting. Even though it took them a long time to hide, they were still very patient. But there was no end to this wait, because the human they were waiting for still hadn't shown up. Finally, A voice resounded from the void of space. I guess. He won't come. The golden flame divinity appeared from the void of space and spoke with a regretful tone. He looked at the desolate coin in his hand. Soon. Chapter 8:28. The sky was boundless. The night wind howled. The lonely moon hung high in the sky, spilling down its boundless cold light that illuminated the entire land. A young man was walking alone through the ruins of a city. This ruin wasn't a destroyed city, but rather a floating island that fell from the sky. At this time, besides the young man Gu Qingshan had turned into, there was no one else alive on the floating island. He had been searching through the ruins for over half an hour now, but still hadn't found the information he wanted. He needed to know the current time. In the history of the past, time is the most important factor, and it can remind you that something important is happening in the near future of this timeline. Gu Qingshan had gone through the heavenly court's escape, his years of cultivation as a disciple, the destruction of the heaven realm, as well as several fragments of the phantom images. He had already obtained a lot of historical records. The things that were extremely important in history. But even after searching for a long time, he still couldn't find any information that could tell him what year it was in the age of old right now. At a certain point, Gu Qingshan stopped in front of a wide, muddy field. He stood still, not daring to breathe too loudly. His spirit sense was trying its best to remind him that death was approaching him without any warning. Gu Qingshan stood still. He had no idea where the attack would come from, but that didn't stop him from doing something. His inner sight had already covered a radius of several hundred feet, so it was now focused on a collapsed wall. All of a sudden, Gu Qingshan disappeared. A wall replaced him and appeared where he originally was. Shadow shift. Almost at the same time, a low screech resounded. The wall was instantly hit by an afterimage and turned into flying dust. Gu Qingshan reappeared several hundred feet away, using his inner sight to observe the gigantic attacker. A pair of thin, transparent wings, 6 legs, and a body as long as a snake. If you only looked at its head, it had a pair of vertical pupils that made it look like a dragon. But if you looked at its wings and 6 legs, it didn't look like that at all. One of the monster's wings was stuck to its back, unable to move. The side of the monster's head was cut open by something. It looked like it was about to fall off, barely hanging on its neck. At this moment, 2 cold lights flashed. The 2 swords alternated as he slashed at the deep wound on the monster's neck. The monster's head was still attached to a thin layer of skin, and it had not completely fallen off. But its life had finally come to an end. The monster struggled to drag itself forward a few times before it stopped moving. The 2 swords slashed the monster back and forth until its head was completely cut off. Thousands of feet away, Gu Qingshan held her breath. He knelt on one knee, unable to move for a long time. Bright red blood dripped from the top of his head and soaked through his clothes. Even after the 2 swords flew back, he still did not move an inch. It had been a long time since Gu Qingshan had experienced such a moment. There was no way to predict, no way to prepare, no time to react. This was a battle where life and death were only a hair's breadth apart. Fortunately, the monster was already heavily injured. It makes sense to destroy one of the largest sects in the cultivation world. Even a desolate monster wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. It was most likely because it was so heavily injured that it was afraid of being eaten by its companions, so it silently hid until Gu Qingshan came closer. Gu Qingshan sighed. While taking out a formation plate to quickly set up an alarm formation, he carefully used his inner sight to check his wound. His spirit energy had already gathered there to temporarily seal the wound. I clearly avoided the monster's attack. How did I still get injured? Blood seemed to be pouring out from my pores. Seems like it wasn't an actual attack. Could it have been that bird cry just now? When the monster cried out, I was so dazed that I didn't even have time to unleash my iris sword. Thinking back, the void of space above my head seemed to have moved a bit. Gu Qingshan's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. He had already analyzed the monster's attack. In the blink of an eye, the monster's attack manifested into three types. The first was a sound soul vessel attack that caused one's consciousness to become blurred. The second was an invisible void slash. Although he didn't know how it was activated, it almost took Gu Qingshan's life. Third, it pounced with all its might, turning the entire wall into flying debris under its pounce. In an instant, 3 different attacks were unleashed at the same time. Fortunately, I used Shadow Shift to avoid the monster's attack. As soon as I used my flying swords, the monster wouldn't be able to defend against me in its current state. Gu Qingshan slowly stood up. The 2 flying swords followed his will and attacked the monster within a radius of several dozen miles around it with powerful sword phantoms. No unusual movements. It was now that Gu Qingshan arrived in front of the monster's corpse and carefully observed it. The wounds on the monster's body were terrifying. Although it was already dead, the 5 elemental spirit energy still lingered on its body, as well as clear marks of stabbing, slashing, poking, and piercing. Quite obviously, it had received a lot of attacks. Putting the monster's corpse away, Gu Qingshan's emotions were a bit fluctuating. To become a cultivator, one has to go through Qi training, foundation establishment, golden core, nascent soul, ascended, saintly, projected, tribulation, virtuous, cryptic, chaotic star, origin returning, radiant soul, void beholder, a total of so many realms. And now, Gu Qingshan had finally reached the end and reached Void Beholder Realm. At Void Beholder Realm, one could break through the void of space and see the world. Right now, he was the same as Xie Daoling, only one last step away from breaking through the cage and becoming a strong cultivator. But facing the heavily wounded desolate monster, he was still almost killed by it. It was only because Gu Qingshan was here. If it was anyone else at the same cultivation level as him, they would have been killed by the monster on the spot. If humanity had to face such monsters, then Gu Qingshan shook his head. Even the notification on the War God UI that soul points increased by 300,000 didn't make his heavy mood any better. I need to continue breaking through. If Xie Guhong was able to single-handedly enter the desolate world and kill the desolate leader, I need to do the same. Gu Qingshan silently swore. Half an hour later, on the other side of the ruins, Gu Qingshan still didn't find any more clues. He found a secluded place, took out a pill, and slowly chewed it. This wasn't a pill with any special effects, it was only a fasting pill that Gu Qingshan made himself. This pill contained all the nutrients a cultivator's body needed, as well as the ability to refresh their minds. Recently, he had been a bit tired, so he didn't have the time or the mood to cook spirit cooking, so he could only make this kind of pill. After eating the fasting pill and resting for a bit, Gu Qingshan finally recovered. He began to summarize the information he obtained. From the tattered clothing and the crafting style of the ruined tools, Gu Qingshan was able to confirm the origin of this floating island. In the age of old, only the most powerful sects had such a large-scale floating island. Barren Cloud Heavenly Palace, Drifting Moon Immortal Sect, Radiant Jewel Pavilion. Barren Cloud Heavenly Palace's clothing was all black, Drifting Moon Immortal Sect only allowed Taoist robes, Radiant Jewel Pavilion preferred colorful clothing because most of their members were female. Gu Qingshan found a few clothes inside the blood, all of them were Taoist robes. Obviously, this was the floating island of the Drifting Moon Immortal Sect. But in history, the Drifting Moon Immortal Sect had been destroyed twice. The first time was very early on. At the time, the divinities had just come into contact with humanity and helped humanity rebuild this sect that was destroyed by the desolate monsters. The second time was a few years after I joined the Barren Cloud Heavenly Palace. At the time, the war was getting more and more intense, and countless great cultivators died. Because the Drifting Moon Immortal sect was located very close to the front lines, during one of the most important battles, the entire sect was destroyed by the desolate monsters. Which was it? Gu Qingshan muttered to himself. After a bit of thought, he took out a formation plate and arranged a series of concealment formations. He patiently waited. If it was the first time, many divinities and humans would soon arrive. If it was the second time, Gu Qingshan sat cross-legged in the middle of the formation with her eyes closed, waiting while cultivating. One day quickly went by. He put the formation away, stood up, and sighed. No one came to check on the situation, and no divinities brought cultivators to rebuild the sect. This meant that the war was still ongoing, and it had reached a very tense state. Excluding the first time, this was definitely the second time they were destroyed. When the Drifting Moon Immortal sect was destroyed for the second time, the divinities didn't come to save the sect. At the time, the front lines were completely destroyed. All the powerful cultivators went to help, even the divinities acted. The Barren Cloud Heavenly Palace's palace master, Xie Guhong, also put aside all of the sect's affairs, didn't even bother to teach his 2 new disciples, and brought many of the sect's experts to the front lines. At the time, Xie Guhong entrusted his 2 disciples to Gu Qingshan, telling Gu Qingshan to teach them in his stead. Wait a minute, if it was at that time, Gu Qingshan recalled what happened at the time. At the time, Huang Zhan and Xin Yang had just returned to the Barren Cloud Master Peak with me. I asked them if they knew anything about the front lines. What did Huang Zhan say at the time? Gu Qingshan recalled what happened at the time. Huang Zhan lowered his voice. I heard that the war was quite intense, a divinity went missing, the initial guess was that he was killed by the desolate monsters, Xin Yang also whispered. This was the first time a divinity had fallen in front of everyone. It seems that all the sects have fallen into panic. Gu Qingshan slowly nodded. The Drifting Moon Immortal sect was destroyed. 1 day later, the front lines collapsed. Another half a day later, the divinity was killed. The divinities then brought all the great cultivators of humanity to the front lines to fight against the desolate monsters. This was about the same time that the front lines collapsed. There was still half a day before the divinity was killed. How strange, didn't the divinities have an agreement with the desolate monsters? Why would the desolate monsters kill a divinity? This was the first time a divinity had died. How it was killed was a very important question. Chapter 829. There was still half a day until the divinity was killed. Night came. A bright red sun slowly rose, illuminating the sky. Flocks of birds flew across the sky, chirping in a desolate manner. They seemed to have noticed the coming of war, so they scattered in panic. Following that, the heavy and desolate sound of a horn resounded one after another. Oh oh, oh oh. The sound of the horn resounded over 1,000 miles, calling for the remaining human cultivators to gather at the front lines again. Gu Qingshan stood in the ruins of the floating island, silently listening to the sound of the horn. He had already read the dossiers of this war, so he knew everything that happened at every point in time. At dawn, the divinities left the divine palace to join the front lines. The sound of the horn meant that the divinities were gathering the defeated human armies to prepare for the decisive battle. About 10 minutes later, the desolate monsters had reached the gathering points of the human armies. The decisive battle had begun. This was the only battle in history where all the divinities participated. After this decisive battle, the desolate monsters were temporarily pushed back, allowing the divinities and humanity to survive. This was a battle where both humans and divinities gave their all, so it was perfectly recorded in history. Gu Qingshan silently thought about how to deal with it. All of a sudden, a flock of birds descended from the sky. They landed in a collapsed courtyard in the middle of the ruins and began to rest. As if they had gone through a long period of panic and flight, they sat by a pond in the courtyard and drank water. After drinking, they didn't leave, apparently satisfied with this place. There was no loud noise, no magic attacks, no sharp blade winds or sword phantoms, so the birds thought that this was a safe place. They were resting here with peace of mind. Gu Qingshan observed these birds from afar. These birds were called wind feathers, because they were the fastest at flying, so fast that other birds couldn't even compare. They got their name. It was very easy to see this kind of bird in the heaven realm, and because their bodies were too slender, there was almost no meat. When they died, the glands in their bodies would release a kind of stench, so there was even less food for them. The only reason why there weren't many of them was because of their reproductive abilities. While Gu Qingshan was thinking about this kind of bird, she suddenly saw a dazzling beam of divine light shooting up into the sky from the distant horizon. The gods had made their move. This meant that the desolate monsters had already infiltrated the various camps and begun to fight with the humans and deities. The final battle had officially begun. Gu Qingshan pursed her lips and thought about everything that had happened. Then, she prepared to leave. He suddenly appeared behind a wind feather and plucked a strand of fur from its butt. The bird was startled. Fortunately, the fur on its butt did not affect its flight, so it screamed and immediately flew into the sky to escape. The other birds were frightened by this and flew away as well. After a short while, another wind feather flew into the sky. However, it did not chase after the other wind feather birds. Instead, it flew toward the front lines. Gu Qingshan turned into a bird and flew quickly in the sky. Although the battle had just begun, he had to reach the place where the battle was the fiercest and find a suitable place to fight while waiting for the scene of the god's death. A few dozen seconds later, Gu Qingshan suddenly heard a desperate scream coming from the ground below. He released his inner sight to scan the area below. A giant monster made entirely of crimson muscles, without any skin, was rampaging through the group of cultivators. The light of the 5 elements shone brightly. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. The cultivators unleashed all their elemental spells. But as the spells struck the monster's body, other than making it tremble a bit, they didn't do anything else. Elemental spells of this level couldn't hurt it at all. The monster picked up an elemental cultivator and brought him into its mouth full of sharp teeth. At this crucial moment, a cultivator stepped out from the crowd, holding a gong with both hands, and struck it with all his might. He chanted long passages of scripture as he hammered on the door. The monster's hand loosened, unable to hold the cultivator anymore. It was trembling non-stop, moaning in pain. The cultivator who struck the gong was sweating profusely, but continued to chant the scripture. The monster struggled to walk towards the cultivator who struck the gong. "Now!" Another cultivator shouted. All the cultivators rushed forward, attacking the monster with all their might. The monster suddenly opened its mouth wide and roared at the cultivators with an earth-shattering roar. This roar seemed to carry some sort of power that directly killed the cultivators closest to it. The cultivator who struck the gong coughed up blood as he was shaken by the monster's roar. He knelt on the ground, his hands trembling, unable to lift them up. The sound of the gong stopped. Without the restriction of the sound technique, the monster regained its vigor and vitality. It lightly leapt forward and arrived in front of the cultivator who struck the gong. The monster reached its hand out to grab the despairing cultivator. At this point, Gu Qingshan arrived. He had already flown past this area, heading towards where the battle was more intense. But at this crucial moment, he suddenly disappeared from the sky. At the very next moment, he turned back into a young man and silently landed not too far behind the monster. Gu Qingshan glanced at the monster. Instantly, the monster disappeared, then reappeared. Bam! One of the monster's arms fell to the ground. The monster raised its head and screamed in pain. With the monster's combat instincts, nothing around it could escape its senses. But it was at a disadvantage because it had never encountered such a strange attack before. In that split second just now, a person suddenly appeared. This person was standing not too far behind it, doing nothing at all. But then it found itself in a sea of darkness. Before it could react, a sharp cold gleam sliced off its arm. In the blink of an eye, it returned to reality. Damn it! What exactly is going on? The furious monster turned around to look at Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan activated her sword seal. Both the Chao Yin sword and the Six Paths Great Mountain sword vibrated. The two swords glowed with sharp sword phantoms as they slashed straight at Gu Qingshan's neck. As the swords were about to descend, Gu Qingshan disappeared. The monster appeared in the middle of the two swords. One dream jolt, one swallow returns. The monster froze, giving up all defenses for the next 5 seconds. Two blazing sword phantoms met at its neck and cleanly cut off its head. The battle was over. "A Void Beholder Realm Sword Saint," someone shouted. A Void Beholder Realm Cultivator was already very close to the peak of great cultivators, not to mention a Sword Saint. It wasn't a surprise that he was able to kill a desolate monster. Everyone appeared glad. Gu Qingshan turned around to look at them, only to see that they were either injured or dead. At this point, another roar came from afar. The ground began to tremble. Some sort of giant monster was heading towards this direction. Gu Qingshan immediately told everyone, "Leave this place to me, you're no longer in a suitable state to fight, retreat from the front lines, find a place to rest and be on standby." "Yes," the cultivators replied. They tried their best to bring their heavily injured companions back to the depths of humanity's territory. The cultivator who hit the gong limped over and clasped his fist gratefully. "Thank you for saving us, it's fine, let's hurry, we won't be able to leave soon enough," Gu Qingshan urged him. He could already smell the stench carried by the wind. It was the stench of corpses from the desolate monsters. The cultivator who hit the gong put a talisman in Gu Qingshan's hand and said, "Take this, I was about to use this just now, but even if I used it, it would only be able to stall for a bit and I would still die. Fortunately, you came." As Gu Qingshan looked at the talisman in her hand, lines of notification appeared on the war god Yu. Item: Fallen Sound Life Talisman, a single-use unique item. Using this item will immediately create a loud sound wave that destroys the enemy's soul vessel. Gu Qingshan put the talisman away and said, "This is very useful, I'll take it, thank you." The cultivator nodded to Gu Qingshan, then turned to leave. After all the cultivators had retreated, Gu Qingshan silently sighed. "Shanu, am I such a failure? I shouldn't have cared about these people. I should have gone straight to the most crucial front line, but I couldn't help but stop and waste so much time here," he said. His original intention was to head straight to the most crucial front line, turn into the most inconspicuous existence, hide, and silently wait for the moment when the divinity would fall. But halfway through, he couldn't help but act and save a group of cultivators. Shanu's gentle voice came from the Six Paths Great Mountain Sword. "Gongzi is not a failure at all, it's precisely because Gongzi did this that he is Gongzi." Gu Qingshan chuckled. "That's such a long way to go." While saying that, his hands didn't stop moving. He had already put the monster's body away. It could be seen that this desolate monster was only a soldier-class monster. It was relatively strong, but compared to the six-legged winged snake that Gu Qingshan met before, it was far weaker. For a soldier-class monster like this, as long as it showed a single opening in front of Gu Qingshan, its fate would be sealed. Although the true Soul Slayer Eyes was only at its primary level, it could already pull an enemy into a temporary world that was created out of thin air and slash them with a soul sword condensed from the soul vessel. Currently, this world that was created out of thin air could only exist for a split second, and the soul sword could only slash once. But by using an ambush method, combined with a powerful lightning spell like Dream Jolt, Gu Qingshan would be able to find a lot of openings on the enemy's body. As a sword cultivator, Gu Qingshan was able to choose more and more ways to fight. The howls of the monsters could be heard in the wind. They were getting closer. Gu Qingshan didn't waste any time and used ground shrink to instantly leave this area and reappear a few dozen miles away. He turned into a wind feather bird and took to the sky again. Chapter 830. The drums of war shook the sky. The horns of war resounded. Blinding flashes of light appeared at the end of the horizon. Gu Qingshan turned into a bird and flew forward with all her might. Whenever she flew past an intense battlefield, a flying sword would appear from the void of space. A dream jolt? This was a lightning thaumaturgy, as well as the best technique to counter the desolate monsters. With 5 seconds of control, no matter how stupid the cultivators were, they would always be able to turn the tables around. In fact, the Sound School's techniques could also counter the desolate monsters, but Sound School was already very hard to understand, so cultivators who were used to elemental techniques wouldn't be able to adapt to it. Wind, lightning, light, dark sound. Sound School was the only mutated elemental spirit energy that appeared in the old heaven realm. Gu Qingshan's lightning school was an exception. He flew through the sky, went deep into the front lines, turned back into human form, and landed in the middle of the battlefield. This was the front lines. Other than the divinities and great cultivators who were fighting against the powerful desolate monsters, this place was the front line against the desolate monsters. The battle had reached its most critical moment. All the desolate monsters were advancing. Humanity was losing ground again and again. This wasn't like the desolate demon eye army from before. This was a full-scale invasion of the monsters. Gu Qingshan didn't hesitate and joined the battle. Shanu's voice came. Gongzi, are we waiting for that moment to kill that divinity? No, Gu Qingshan replied. That divinity's fate has already been decided, we can't steal it. Otherwise, if someone follows us to this phantom image and our actions don't match what happened in history, we'll be exposed. Then what are we doing here? Shanu asked. To see how a divinity dies. I've killed a lot of things, but I've never killed a divinity before, so I need to observe the desolate monster's methods, Gu Qingshan replied. The Chao Yin sword returned. A desolate monster was killed by a group of cultivators. Gu Qingshan managed to land the final blow. Looking at the soul points increased by 100,000 notification on the war god Yue, Gu Qingshan said, We're going to fight while we wait. Yes, Gongzi, Shana replied. He raised both swords. Gu Qingshan wielded both swords and charged into the horde of monsters. Powerful monsters such as the 6-legged winged serpent had long joined the battle against the gods and the human grand cultivators. Most of the primordial monsters here were at the soldier level, and they were specifically used to deal with human cultivators. Gu Qingshan didn't have much trouble dealing with it. With his strength, he could completely take care of the battles within dozens of miles around him and ensure that the situation would gradually turn in the favor of the human race. However, the entire battlefront was hundreds of miles long, and his strength was like a drop in the ocean when compared to the entire battlefield. It was impossible for him to have much of an impact on the overall situation. Boom! In the distant horizon, a streak of light suddenly flew over and exploded at the intersection of the two sides, killing a large number of monsters and cultivators. Gu Qingshan was originally standing there, but fortunately, he reacted quickly and used Shadow Shift to switch places with a desolate monster. Although he managed to escape with his life, the number of human casualties continued to rise throughout the war. Gu Qingshan gritted his teeth, popped a pill into his mouth, and began to use his sword hand seals. His swords left 2 long arcs of blue lightning behind them as they weaved back and forth across the battlefield. Who are you? A cultivator suddenly appeared in front of Gu Qingshan and shouted. I'm a disciple of Drifting Moon Immortal Sect, Gu Qingshan also loudly replied. Ah, I was wondering why you look so familiar, but why aren't you wearing any armor? My armor is broken, Gu Qingshan replied. Come, wear mine, this is my family's heirloom armor, I've never been injured before." The cultivator didn't say anything else and tapped his chest. The armor peeled off from his body and automatically assembled itself into an exquisite set of armor in front of the two of them. Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised. He looked at the cultivator and asked, "If I wear it, what about you?" The cultivator touched the armor with his hand and replied, "I'm fine, I'm a fire elemental sorcerer, I can just attack from behind." Seeing that Gu Qingshan still wanted to refuse, the cultivator spoke. "You're different. As long as you have the armor, you can charge into the enemy's ranks and buy everyone a lot of time to breathe. Do you dare to wear my armor and charge into the fray?" Gu Qingshan replied, "Why wouldn't I?" The cultivator smiled at him and took his hand off the armor. Gu Qingshan put his hand on the cold and heavy metal armor and infused his spirit energy into it. Countless spirit energy runes lit up on the surface of the armor. The entire armor disassembled and attached itself to his body, quickly donning him. Shanu immediately sent her voice to remind him. "Gongzi, don't rush forward. Don't you remember that we have to stay here and watch how the divinities die?" "I know, I forgot," Gu Qingshan replied. He put on his mask, summoned his swords, and shouted, "I'm a sword cultivator, everyone follow me." He charged towards the horde of desolate monsters. While he was halfway there, blinding lightning sword phantoms turned into an unstoppable flood that surged forward. The desolate monsters weren't used to such a sudden lightning attack, so they cautiously retreated. The human cultivators' morale was greatly boosted as they roared, "Go! Go! Kill them!" Humanity began to charge into the desolate monsters' rank. This was a counterattack. Gu Qingshan's swords swiftly slashed, each strike faster than the last. With this sturdy armor, he only cared about killing. Kill! Kill! The human cultivators followed behind him like a tidal wave, madly attacking the monsters' ranks. The monsters' casualties began to increase. The corpses of the monsters fell in front of the cultivators' feet. At some point, Gu Qingshan sensed something and let out a furious roar. The 5 elemental cultivator who lent him the armor had died. Among the desolate monsters, there was a type that was adept at throwing spikes from their bodies. The 5 elemental cultivator didn't have any armor to protect himself, so he was nailed to death by one of the spikes. This was a battlefield, a front line, a place where people could die at any moment. But, die! Gu Qingshan angrily shouted. Boom! Lightning flashed like lightning, destroying the bodies of several desolate monsters. Gu Qingshan didn't have much time to vent his emotions. He had to be careful of himself at all times to prevent himself from suffering the same fate. He had to force himself to regain his composure. But the cultivator's voice was still echoing in his ears. "You're different. As long as you have the armor, you can charge into the enemy's ranks and buy everyone some time to breathe. Do you dare to wear my armor and charge into the fray?" "Why wouldn't I dare? Damn it! Damn it! Why, I've already done everything I could to increase my strength. Why can't I save even one life at a time?" Gu Qingshan's eyes were bloodshot. He went silent for a short moment. The cultivators around him thought that he was tired, so they hurriedly gathered around him to protect and defend him. A sword cultivator wouldn't easily charge into the enemy's ranks, but if they did, they would be the one that everyone would do everything in their power to support and follow. Because a sword cultivator would never let down their comrades, not even in death. On the battlefield, Gu Qingshan's pained scream resounded. His spirit energy erupted from his body, sweeping towards the back of the formation. Next to the corpse, in the puddles of blood, lost in the formation, stabbed into the monster's body. All the swords, they all let out a woo-woo sound. One of the swords escaped from the dead cultivator's hand, silently circled around the dead cultivator, then leapt into the air, breaking through the layers of wind to fly behind Gu Qingshan. The second sword leapt out from the pool of blood, screaming in pain as it flew behind Gu Qingshan. The third sword leapt out from the monster's body and flew behind Gu Qingshan. The fourth sword, all the swords of the dead sword cultivators returned to Gu Qingshan's back, turning into a pair of ever-expanding wings of swords. They lightly touched each other, pulsating, waiting. Gu Qingshan sighed and sent his voice. Shanu. I'm sorry, I have many ways to find out how a divinity died, but I can't go right now, Shanu replied. It's fine, Gongzi, no matter what you do, I'll support you, I'm your sword. Gu Qingshan suddenly looked up, looking at the sea of desolate monsters in front of him. Come, receive my lightning spirit Tai sword array, he muttered softly. Intense wind. Furious thunder roared. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.